And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, yeah.
I want to speak directly to New Yorkers who have for too long been misled and misinformed about the true state of our city's finances. I will be blunt. New York City is facing a serious fiscal crisis. There is a massive fiscal deficit in our city's budget to the tune of at least $12 billion. We did not arrive at this place by accident. This crisis has a name and a chief architect. In the words of the Jackson 5, it's as easy as ABC. This is the Adams budget crisis. In 2025, under the banner of what he called the best budget ever, former Mayor Eric Adams handed the next administration a poisoned chalice. He systematically under-budgeted services that New Yorkers rely on every single day: rental assistance, shelter, and special education, while quietly leaving behind enormous gaps for the future. And knowing his time in office was likely coming to an end, Mayor Adams chose political self-preservation over fiscal responsibility.
All right, attention to roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern Time. And, of course, it's your Friday roundtable, John Marlin and myself. And here we are talking about Zohran Mamdani, New York City. Are we headed for bankruptcy, or is he actually maintaining or restoring order? Now, we told you Zohran Mamdani is no different than Eric Adams, but it's pretty funny how Zohran Mamdani is trying to separate himself from Eric Adams. And at this point, what I believe he's doing also is foreshadowing every plan that he actually campaigned on, he will be able to retract from by saying that there is a fiscal crisis in New York City. Now, I do believe there is a fiscal crisis in New York City that Eric Adams has been hiding from. And I think Zohran Mamdani was handed some peril. I do believe he was handed a disaster. However, he also made promises that he can't keep. So here we are, Friday with the Finest Unfiltered. John, let's jump right into it.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? Welcome. Happy Friday. I hope everybody's staying warm. I know it's cold out there, and it's about to get a lot colder this weekend. So is what it is, right? You know, it's winter time. February's coming. So, all right, you know, this has been like a real inflection point. Everybody's talking about the budget, you know, how Mamdani came out swinging at Adams. And to be fair, to Eric Adams, it's the budget, the fiscal problem where New York City has a $12 billion budget deficit is not all of Eric Adams' fault. But Eric Adams multiplied that problem, and he ensured that, in fact, there would be a budget deficit. He ensured the fact that there would be $12 billion. So, you know, I don't understand where Republicans or where anybody, Democrats, is getting off to be like saying that Zohran Mamdani has nerve, pointing to the clear, utter incompetence, mismanagement, and the blatant corruption of the Adams administration that caused this $12 billion budget gap. I mean, like, this is not something that's unexpected. I mean, Marlon's been talking about this forever. I've been literally, if you go back to my tweets in 2022, I was literally saying in 2022 that New York City's going broke. He's using the mandate. He's using the mandate as an illegal layoff. And now that he's doubling down on his campaign rhetoric, his ideology is not going to match reality. And by 2026, New York City is going to have a heavy price to pay. And you could go all the way back to my tweets in 2022, and you'll see I said it over and over and over and over again. And it's not because I'm a genius. It's not because I'm a rocket scientist. It's because I pay attention and I'm watching what's happening. It's not because Marlon's a genius and he knows anything that anyone else does. It's just the fact that we've been paying attention to how New York City's been moving. And it's clear as day. It only makes sense to that we're here now. You know, so I don't blame Zohran Mamdani for coming out swinging. And it's two things to me. Like, one, anyone that came into office had to come out and call out what happened in the last 4 years. You had to, because if you don't, you own it. You own the corruption, you own the mismanagement, you own the spending, you own the contracts, the no-bid contracts that were just going out to family and friends. You own all of that. So you have to call out what happened. The other thing is, Zohran Mamdani has stated that he wants to raise taxes on the rich, right? And Governor Kathy Hochul has said time and time again that she's against it. City Council is backing Hochul on that. And I also think this is a real flex on Zohran Mamdani saying, okay, well, you don't want me to raise taxes. You're not going to give me the money. Well, I'm going to show everybody what you guys have been doing the last 4 years. And, so I don't disagree with one thing that Zohran Mamdani had to say here. I don't know how you guys feel about it. Welcome, Marlon. How's everything, brother?
Yo, morning, guys. Morning, chat. Like John said, happy Friday. Man, these weeks fly by so quickly, Yeah, we've been talking about this for a while now, and it's funny that we're actually here right now, and the public's talking about it, and the new, I'm meaning rather than the news is actually openly talking about it, rather than some articles here and there, and Zohan's talking about it. So we're getting at that come to Jesus moment that I've kept talking about, I mean, he has like 19 days right now to deliver a balanced budget. So let's see how that's going to work out. Again, that's the city has a $2 billion deficit this quarter, this fiscal year, ending in I believe June or July, and it has a $12 billion projected for next year. So I want to see what math they're going to do to get out of this one. And the thing is, some of you wonder like why we mentioned this for a while on a police podcast. After all, what could that have to do with policing, right? Well, let me tell you everything, because you're gonna see cuts to the police department now. The police department, which already has inadequate training and already has guys doing like so much overtime, they're not seeing their families, right? You're about to see cuts to the police department that are going to hamper the job of cops even more, because again, they have to find cuts somewhere. And we all know they love going to the police department, because the police department seems to be the only agency in the city that has any sort of accountability and that has any sort of impetus to cut spending when they're really pressed to by the mayor. So there's a lot to talk about this, and we're gonna show you how this rolls into policing. We're gonna actually talk about it in this discussion. So
John, I get what you're saying, but I just don't agree that he's owning it. And the reason why I think that is because he was damn well aware that there was a fiscal crisis and that there was a ballooning crisis going on in New York City. He was aware of it. Everyone was aware of it. It was nothing shy of public knowledge. Now, Zohran Mamdani is in favor of government expansion and free services. His whole campaign was about government expansion and free services, knowing that there's a crisis, knowing that once he jumps into office, that crisis could be far worse than he expected once they actually drill down and get the numbers. So he's all about giving free services, and yet free services actually is a further detriment to a fiscal crisis or a complete ballooning crisis of New York City. To me, exposes the complete contradiction. You're saying we have a major problem, which you already aware that there was a major crisis in New York City as we speak about the financial status of New York City, jumped into office, campaigned on giving all these free services. I believe that he's putting himself in a position to retract back from these promises. Also, exactly what Marlon alluded to defund the police and start to take funding from the police, which includes potentially SRG, and expand on this social worker program. So I just don't see it as him owning it. I see it as him using this to gaslight everyone and use this as a shield and to mask his entire campaign.
Well, that's what I said. I didn't say that he's owning it. I said that what he's doing by doing this is not owning it, because if he doesn't call out Eric Adams, then he owns it. The budget.
Gotcha. Understood.
You know what I'm saying? Then the budget becomes his. I don't know if I explained it right. But like if you step into office, right? Like, so Zohran Mamdani owned Eric Adams' crime statistics, right? Like he comes in and, he's saying that Eric Adams can't be trusted. Eric Adams is corrupt. Eric Adams mismanaged the budget. So he's saying all those things aren't accurate, right? So you can't blame me for that. That's Eric Adams. You can't blame me when I can't meet the campaign promises that I met. But you see what he did with the crime statistics. Oh, Jessica Tisch is great. Crime statistics are down. So he owns Eric Adams' crime statistics. He's not owning Eric Adams' budget. And, what he's doing is throwing shade on Eric Adams and showing everybody, in fact, what Eric Adams did. And now we're all aware, right? But you don't really know what it looks like until you get there. It's the same thing like we consistently talk about the staffing numbers in the NYPD. Nobody really knows what they are. But Zohran Mamdani, after he got sworn in, he found out, and I guarantee he knows there are not 34,000 New York City police officers. You know what I mean? But he decided he was going to own that fact as well. So, what I'm saying is...
Right.
What I'm saying is he's letting everyone know when Eric Adams told you last year that he passed the best budget ever, it really wasn't the best budget ever. And this was always coming home to roost. Eric Adams knew it, and he never had the integrity or the competence enough to back off of it. Never did. He just kept doubling down up until his last day. Up until his last day, he was adding to this budget deficit hundreds of millions of dollars. And, the one statement that people hang on, they're like, oh, that's what got him indicted. It's like, no, that's absolutely not what got him indicted. Biden 100% wasn't happy with him. But it wasn't the migrant crisis that got Eric Adams indicted. It was his own corruption. And it was the Trump administration that started investigating Eric Adams originally. It was not the Biden administration. That investigation was years and years and years. So this is Eric Adams' first few weeks in office. And I want you to hear this is a staffer on his team. I want you to hear what he says. And now people say that he got fired for a comment he made about why Eric Adams fired unvaccinated workers. And that's what Eric Adams wanted you to believe. And some of you actually believed it. And I don't know why, because I'm going to show you that Eric Adams actually doubled down on those same comments on Fox News, a little bit more professionally, a little bit cleaner. His take on unvaccinated city workers, cops, firefighters, teachers is the same as Eric Adams. Eric Adams is, again, the person that fired them, not Bill de Blasio. So, but Chris Baugh, as much as a little weak man he is, as much as a little transplant with skinny arms, open-toe shoes, walking around here, getting to enjoy the fruits of the labor of New York City police officers and not be robbed every day, he nails Eric Adams, and he says exactly what's going to happen in 2026, and he does it in 2022. Chris Baugh gets fired by Eric Adams for this statement and this statement alone. So I just want you guys to listen to what Chris Baugh says, because the thing is, campaign rhetoric and then following through with that in reality are just two different things. Eric Adams campaigned he was going to give free health care to illegals. He was going to allow non-citizens to vote. He was going to ensure that ICE never worked with the New York City Police Department and harmed illegals. Eric Adams, when Governor Abbott started complaining that I can't handle this, we need to close the border, Eric Adams said, as the mayor of New York City, I'll take him. His ideology did not meet reality, and Chris Baugh is going to tell you exactly why. This is 2022, right when Adams. This is a member of Eric Adams' advance team at the time.
So the Republicans were like, here are 11,000 people we don't want to deal with.
I think what Abbott was doing has proven effective. It's flooded our system. And frankly, I don't know how much Biden is going to appreciate having a mayor be like, hey, you owe blue cities money because of this migrant crisis. Eventually, it's going to make Biden look bad, which we're a month out from the midterms. It's a very perilous situation for him. And I don't know that Eric Adams is capable enough to navigate it. And ultimately, it's us struggling to comply with our own laws, our right to shelter laws.
The city has a right to shelter law. No one in the city is supposed to sleep on the street. People do, but they do it by choice. And our laws state, we have to take care of it. That is the law of the city. The law is not designed to say, we want asylum seekers to come to New York City. That's not the design of the law.
Can't we just amend our right to shelter laws?
I mean, we could. We're choosing not to.
Oh, it's
we could repeal it.
There was talk about us just limiting the number of migrants we would accept. And I'm glad that we didn't do it that way.
If the mayor did that, everyone would resign. They'd be like, all right, I'm out. Like, this guy. I have colleagues in government who are going to resign if the mayor put a cap on immigrants. If he was like, after 20,000, like, we're not taking care of them, they were going to resign over it.
How many will we accept?
All of them. Like, we don't like it, but we'll take as many as they keep sending.
I think the optics of this are bad for Biden and they're bad for the mayor. And I think Biden's saying, like, all right, I'm just going to give away money to New York City because, like, they can't take care of these migrants is going to just be bad politics for him.
The city is broke, which makes me very nervous as someone who is paid by the city. We're anticipating like a $10 billion budget deficit by 2026 right now. There was free money from the government for the last 2 years because of COVID.
Yeah.
All of that's gone.
Can you just raise the taxes?
The mayor doesn't want to. I mean, that is an option. Or we could like reduce services, just not give people enough stuff. I don't know, pick something. Department for the Aging, immigrants. Like, we're housing immigrants right now from Texas. It would be very easy to be like, nope, not anymore.
We're anticipating a $10 billion budget deficit by 2026. They knew it, they doubled down, and they kept spending billions of dollars. This is Eric Adams' budget crisis, 1,000%. He did nothing to alleviate it. He exasperated it.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember us talking about it back then. I think it's actually worse than people are than their projections, because like I said before, the migrant crisis was really a backdoor bailout of a lot of these hotels in Manhattan that were used as shelters. And the thing is, by using taxpayer money, it prevented those properties from defaulting, and then if they default, nobody's paying the property tax, and then it starts cascading problems with property taxes in those respective areas. So and also to that, the city, I believe the figure is around 44% of the city's budget is based off of commercial property taxes. So the city does not want those values to hit the books. And I think that was one of the measures to prevent it from hitting the books. The problem for them and for Zohran is that by 2027, a lot of these values are hitting the books. A lot of these properties are up for refinancing, and they're going to refinance under rates that are much higher than years ago. And that's if they're going to be able to be allowed to refinance, because a lot of banks are going to say no, because you're not pulling in the same amount of revenue you once did. So to go back to what you guys said, I think I agree that this is Zohran kind of preempting it and kind of displacing blame on Eric Adams, because he knows the depth of the problems that he's facing. Additionally, these problems, just to highlight how these problems aren't new, they were mentioned in the prior budgets, that the city had a deficit, and that basically they were it seems to me like they were using some fancy accounting to kind of roll over that deficit for every year, and now it seems like the things are all coming to a head at one time. So I personally don't see how he's going to get out of this, like what he's going to do to get out of it. I think in a lot of ways he's going to be dependent on the state's help, but that in itself brings up a problem, because Kathy Hochul is trying to attract businesses to New York State, and the state just signed a deal with Micron, one of the microchip fabricators, to build a factory upstate. And she has to do that because there are other big states like Texas that are attracting a lot of this production, and New York State has to compete. So he wants the state to raise taxes, but the state needs quite the opposite, which is to keep taxes where they are, or in fact, actually lower them. I don't think that's going to happen, but he certainly has a conundrum ahead of him if he plans if he thinks that the solution to his problems is raising taxes on businesses. And again, guys, this is why, like we kept saying, that it's important that people talk to their unions about this, because in a lot of ways, the unions are the gatekeepers of the city. And when all of this was being initially brought up, and it was being brought up because the papers had a couple articles on it years ago, and as John just showed you, Chris Barr talked about it. This is why you needed the unions to go to the mayor and to push back and say, wait a second, what's going on? Why we gotta pay attention to this? We gotta make some moves now to prevent potential catastrophe. And this is why we spoke about you talking to your unions, because at some point this situation was going to come to a head, and it was better to begin making steps to solve it back then rather than to actually wait until things come to a head like they seem to be now.
So at this point, we have to ask ourselves, is Zohran Mamdani willing to seek out federal grants for New York City? And I think the answer is already there. I think he foreshadowed it. His whole campaign was about free resources and also government expansion, and also doubling down that he's going to push back against Trump. And if there's no federal funding, that he's still going to stand his ground. And yet, immediately when he's elected, he has a meeting with Donald Trump. He has a meeting with Donald Trump. So you have to say to yourself, obviously he was trying to form a partnership and seeking some type of grant for federal funding. So while that might be a good thing, it just shows that everything that he campaigned on, his whole message, his whole promise, has been a complete lie. There's no secret that New York City was in a budget crisis. He's aware of that. He's aware of that. He's provided all the information as he's campaigning. And once he was elected and he became the mayor-elect, I'm sure he started to get more detailed and drilled down information, knew exactly where the state of New York City is at. So it just shows that his campaign is empty promises. It was never going to come to fruition. And I believe, in your words, Marlon, that's exactly where you're at. This is a preemptive strike. And I believe this is foreshadowing that these promises are going to fall flat on their face. And again, the young people of this country, especially in New York City, have the curtain pulled away from them. And they're going to realize that these promises were never going to come to fruition. You can't expand on government expansion and all these resources when you're already in a budget crisis. So this idea that he's going to be a reformer is just complete bullshit. He's not reforming anything. Again, I often say that Jessica Tisch is the queen of rebrand. Well, Zohran Mamdani is going to be the mayor of rebrand also. He's going to have to pretend that he wasn't aware of this, and this magically fell in his lap. Clearly, he was aware of this. And what bad money spending comes down to is not how much money New York City has. It's down to leadership. Everything we've been telling you, the Eric Adams administration is a failure on leadership, and Zohran Mamdani has already shown a failure on leadership because these promises are falling flat on their face. And exactly what we told you before, these promises will never come to fruition. And I think it's playing out right here in front of our faces.
Well, look, to be fair to Zohran Mamdani, though, like, if I was the mayor right now, I'd be doing the same thing. Like, I remember speaking vividly. I remember vividly speaking to Marlon. I was like, yo, they want me to go on the ballot for mayor. And Marlon's like, the budget deficit's huge. It's huge. And I'm like, well, it is what it is, right? We just got to be honest about it and make the cuts that we got to make. And it is what it is, whether people like it or not. And we got to be honest about what's happening in the fiscal crisis that's happening here. Zohran Mamdani backing off his campaign promises. It's like, oh, wow. So he's a politician like every other politician. Name me a politician that followed through on their campaign promises. Name me one, because I don't know any. So I'm not even concerned with his campaign promises. I'm concerned because they were ridiculous anyway. He came in on free buses, and what they do? They raised the bus fare. The minute he came in, I'm not concerned because all those things were ridiculous anyway. Again, ideology doesn't match reality, but what I'm concerned with is, what is he going to do now? What are you going to do to fix this budget deficit? And we saw what Eric Adams' plan was. Eric Adams' plan to fix the budget deficit was he was going to attack the New York City Police Department. He was going to lower the headcount of the New York City Police Department. He was going to take $1 billion out of their budget. He was going to lower payroll costs. This is October of 2022. This is after Ball's talking about Eric Adams firing all the cops. This is the height of the mandate. This is when I get into it with this certain legacy media station where I'm like, I'm not going on there and I'm not talking about an exodus and not bringing up the fact, the number one reason why all these guys are walking out the door, the reason I lost my career, the reason thousands of people are feet put to the fire, it's because of Eric Adams' mandate. So here's Rosanna Scotto. This is October 2022. Here's her. This is, this is on the height of the mandate. This is when he's firing everybody. This is when people each week are getting their feet put to the fire. Eric Adams knew what he was doing. That was a layoff, the mandate. And here he is reiterating it. He's basically reiterating that he doesn't care about losing cops and he doesn't need cops. And this is the one campaign promise that I've seen actually a politician follow through with, that he was going to lower the overall headcount in the NYPD. Listen to Eric Adams here.
Mr. Mayor, are you concerned there are reports that over 500 cops are resigning and over 1,000 are retiring? Does that concern you?
No, it does not. New York City Police Department is an amazing career. You know, I know it firsthand. And we're going to find young men and women who are going to want to be a member of the New York City Finest. And I also believe, and I stated this over and over again, we are not deploying our resources properly. And the police commissioner and I and her team, we are looking at the proper deployment of police officers. You're seeing a difference on our parades. You don't see 5, 6 police officers standing at the corner together. You're seeing us deploy our police properly. And we're going to bring in, we got an amazing recruitment campaign coming in. This is a great opportunity to diversify the department. So no, people will always want to join the New York City Police Department. It's one of the best careers you could have in the city. So, Mr. Mayor, I know you.
So that's Eric Adams, right? And it really just shows that Chris Ball knew Eric Adams very well. He said he doesn't have the tools capable to navigate New York City through this crisis. So this was the one area he attacked, right? You know, during the campaign, he said that he was going to lower the overall headcount of the NYPD. He said that they wouldn't be policing protests, that civilians would be policing protests. He would get violence interventions or things of of that nature. And that's not what happened. What happened is he said, no, I'm just going to lower the staff we have at the parades. And again, his ideology didn't meet reality even when he was in office. Then he went to his deployment. I'm going to only have one transit cop. We don't need all these transit cops as partners. I didn't have a partner. You also didn't do police work. So that, again, ideology did not meet reality. He orders transit cops to work by themselves. First day, we almost get a cop killed. Then the unions finally remember what their job is, and they push back, and then it goes back to a 2-man patrol. So originally, we see this, right? And this is right at the same time he's saying, I'll take everybody. I'll take all the illegals in. Give them to me. We'll take care of it. We'll show Governor Abbott how it's done. We'll show the rest of the world how it's done. And Chris Ball, his senior advisor, is literally saying, we'll take all of them. You know, and the other thing that Adams did, which nobody wants to remember, is New York City sanctuary city law does not apply to illegal immigrants. New York City, right to shelter law does not apply to illegal immigrants. Right to shelter law applies to New York City residents, New York State residents. You are not a resident if you come here illegally. So that was originally off the bat. Now, if was the mayor at that time, I don't care about New York City sanctuary city law. I'm not housing you. And it's a crisis. And due to the extreme emergency, due to the extinction circumstances, I'm going to the federal government and ICE to deport these people. And if it's not on them, it's on them. The reason he could never do that, though, is because he knew of all the corruption investigation he was involved in, and he did not want to get indicted over it. So he could never actually govern ever. And so again, the budget crisis he was well aware of, and instead of trying to fix it, he decided he was going to defund the New York City Police Department. He was going to try to take that money and somehow work with it, and he was too incompetent to even do that because the idiots he put in charge of it blew the budget out of the water.
Yeah. Daniel says that I kind of live in a fantasy land. I guess because I advocated for people to speak to their unions, to talk to their unions about these issues, a while back. Well, I may live in a fantasy world, Daniel, but the problem is that if you don't, if cops, the problem with the NYPD is, in a lot of ways, people don't think it's their problem until it becomes their problem. And the thing is, if you thought it wasn't your problem a couple of years ago, now it's your problem because, the overtime is already cut, right? And, Zohan he says he's creating a savings officer position for every agency whose job it is going to be to determine where to make cuts, right? So additional cuts are coming. And like we said, it's going to be your guys. It's going to be your problem if you're in the job, because now you're going to be asked to do even more for less, and even more with the same resources you had before, or even less resources. So the reason why we said that you need to talk to your unions is because eventually the fire comes to your house too. Okay, first your neighbor's house burns down and you don't care, but then now the fire is reaching your doorsteps. Okay, so and also for keep in mind now the NYPD is already over budget this year by $1.1 billion. Okay, and we already know the progressives are gunning for certain units like SRG, because SRG's budget is $133 million. $133 million a year. Now that's a lot of money. And again, this by the way comes way of the NYC ACLU. So again, the progressives are already gunning for the NYPD. All right. So like I said, the unions are the gatekeepers of the city in a lot of ways. Administrations come and go, politicians come and go, but the unions have always been there. And this is why it's important for them to do their job and to watch over things like this and make sure that things don't go off the cliff, because they're going to be there when things go off the cliff, and mayors like Eric Adams won't be there. Okay. And I also see another comment. It says Chris Barr isn't a senior advisor, he's an advanced guy, the guy who waits at a location for the mayor. Yeah, sure, but it was plainly obvious even back then that the city had a budget problem, because it was again in their annual statements. And in fact, Brad Lander, to his credit, has mentioned this a couple times. He mentioned this in 23, and he mentioned it in 24 when Eric Adams sought to increase the borrowing limit of the city. And the reason why Eric Adams sought to do that is because he knew the extent of the budget problems in the city. So again, it doesn't take a genius to understand that the city was facing problems years ago.
Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out, Dan. That if in fact what you're saying is true, that he didn't speak to Eric Adams, then it just shows even more how Eric Adams was a moron, because even the low-level staffers, which he wasn't, he was a senior advisor. He was part of his advanced team, right? He was part of his top team waiting for him. What was he waiting for him? To hand them flyers? To hand them water? No. So even he knew. How did he know they were facing a $10 billion budget crisis in 2026? What did Chris Barr say in that video that was inaccurate, that you're getting a little butthurt about? What was it? Oh, nothing. He told the truth, right? That's what happened.
Yeah, that's the reality. You know what's interesting? Every time we have an elected official who sits in the office of mayor for New York City, the first avenue that they try to attack when it comes to budgets, especially the Eric Adams administration, now Zohran Mamdani, is cuts for the NYPD. That's the first place they go to, right? So this whole defund the police is also a distraction because of a budget crisis. Now we have to say, why the NYPD? And I can tell you this, in my opinion, understaffing actually costs more than proper staffing. And the reason why is because we get this excessive amount of overtime. Then we also get what's bleeding the system, and it's coming from the NYPD. It's civil lawsuits and settlements that have emanated because we're not fighting these cases, and we're just settling them. And also, Eric Adams' administration had caused so much litigation, we have to pay for that. The other thing is we lost supervisors at the highest level with experience because of the COVID mandate. That costs money because we have to replace those people with newly trained police officers that have zero experience, which requires more training. That's very cost effective, or cost ineffective, as you could say. So Zohran Mamdani was highly aware of all these issues. This is not news to him in his first couple of weeks as the mayor of New York City. This is all presented to him. He knew exactly what he's walking into. So all these promises, as I said before, were just empty, as he knew he would be faced with this budget crisis. And we knew the first path in his mayoral his mayoral position of New York City would be to attack the NYPD. But as I said before, understaffing is far more cost ineffective than having proper staffing. And if we have a highly manned police department, it will actually cost less than in the position that we're at right now. If we had the so-called 35,000, or upwards of 41,000 where we were in 2000, we would be much better off than when we have a shorthanded police department. And the only plan we saw by Eric Adams was overtime upon overtime. And I don't think anything's going to change with Zohran Mamdani either. While he might tell you SRG is this evil character, this evil organization has to go away. It's the same unit that he utilized to make mass arrests in recent protests. So, again, here's another talking head from New York City. Nothing has changed. We told you Eric Adams, Andrew Cuomo, and Zohran Mamdani would be the same thing. And here we are. Nothing has changed. It's just a different face. It's the same shit. It just smells different.
Yeah, no, it's so now we get into the migrant crisis, right? Everybody knew what was going to happen. Eric Adams is like, come here. Eric Adams has all these brilliant ideas. We're going to give them health care. They're going to get free health care. I'm going to take yours, but we're going to give them free health care. We're going to give them credit cards. They could deliver food. They get free Ubers. My good friends are going to get their crumbs and get their security contracts. My donors, I'm going to keep their hotels and their buildings fully rented. Everything's going to be fully rented, and I'm going to pay more money. And then he's like, oh yeah, we got this problem. But don't worry, I'm just going to go, because I'm the Biden of Brooklyn. I'm Joe's favorite mayor. I'm just going to go to Joe Biden. He's going to give me the money, right? And so listen to what he says here, and when he starts to cry, he's not crying because he cares about the illegals. He's crying because he wants his crumbs. And he knows that what he's doing is going to come home to roost in either his second term, or it's going to be the reason he only has one term. So now he's like, I can't keep doing this. I can't do this. I need the money. I need the money from the federal government. I need the $12 billion. But I'll be honest with you. Joe Biden should have never gave him the $12 billion, because if he would have, we'd still be in the deficit today anyway, because that money would have went on fire. He can't be trusted with money, this guy. So, not that Biden knows what he's even doing, but I wouldn't, the people around Biden that knew his handlers, you couldn't give this guy $12 billion. It would have never got solved. The crisis would have never got solved, because Marlon spoke about it earlier, right? What happened after Bloomberg is de Blasio inherits a lot of money. And what he does is, and why the hotel owners and the big real estate developers all love de Blasio is because he created the homeless industrial complex. Basically, what he did was he started to rent out all of these rooms from these hotels that had high vacancy rates, and he put in homeless people. Most of those hotel rooms, homeless people weren't even in. And we filled all of these hotel rooms and we were paying double what those hotel charges, right? So that happened for 8 years. 8 years under Bill de Blasio, we were doing that. He built up the homeless industrial complex. That's what Marlon was saying is like, well, if we stopped doing that, these hotels would have collapsed. These hotels should have collapsed 8 years ago, and they didn't because of Bill de Blasio. So what happens is Eric Adams comes into office, and he's like, oh, I want to have a free penthouse like Bill de Blasio has too in the hotel. I want all these rich guys to like me too, like Bill de Blasio. Maybe I'll even get a new set of hair like Bill de Blasio, you know? And so what he does is, I know what I'll do. I'll import the whole world because we ran out of homeless here in New York City, and we'll just keep building and we'll keep filling these other hotels up. And so the homeless industrial complex turned into the illegal industrial complex. And so that's what Eric Adams did, is he doubled down. Instead of doing what Zohran Mamdani's doing at this moment in time, where he's attempting to distance himself from Adams and that budget and fiscal irresponsibility, let's see what he does going forward. But here we are in the past. Here's where Eric Adams is like, this is Eric Adams' oh shit moment. When he's like, we got a little bit of a problem here. I need some money. Here you go.
This cost should be picked up by the federal government, not only what is this fiscal year, but for the next 2 fiscal years. And Jacques Fabrice, the director, Jacques Jihad, the director of OMB, has made it clear this is a $12 billion price tag over the 3 years. And this is a national problem. We have been paying the cost of that. And we believe that the federal government should pick up the tab. And if I come back empty-handed, as you indicated, we're going to continue our advocacy, and we're hoping that all of our local electeds on the state and city level join the coalition that we have been able to create. As the deputy mayor stated, we have a coalition.
So there he goes. He tells you right then and there. It's a $12 billion crisis over the next 3 years. I need that money from the federal government. You know, you got to give it to me. But he's unwilling to back off of any of his policies. He doesn't want to manage. He just wants the money to fund these no-bid contracts. He just wants the money for everything. He has no management skill whatsoever, and he's not willing to back off of anything that he did that was insane. He was literally telling you that you should volunteer for jobs because he's going to lower your police services. He's going to lower your fire department services. You're going to need school crossing guards. You should volunteer for it. Oh, and also you should open up your home and allow legals to come in because this is a national problem. You got to help him. He's the pilot, but he doesn't want to be the pilot. He just wants to go to Big Daddy, and he wants Big Daddy to pay for all the problems that he created.
Yeah. Spot on, John. Spot on. These Democrat mayors, it's like, not now all politicians are problems, but in particular when it comes to managing a city and managing budgets and managing, looking long term, these Democrat mayors are the worst. Like, his solution is run to the feds for more money. Never mind. Let's manage what we have. Never mind New York City. His budget is massive. It's bigger than some states. Never mind the revenue that comes into New York City is massive too. Let's not manage that. Let's go run for more money because that solves the issue. And it's a massive problem now. It's a massive problem, and it's part of the reason why a lot of these big blue cities are in trouble right now. A lot of them are facing bankruptcy. We talked about in the past also about Chicago, San Francisco, Boston. The list goes on. And there's a report a couple of years ago, rather last year, by the Truth in Accounting that actually pointed out how much trouble these cities are in. And that amount right there is the taxpayer burden. That's how much we need from every New Yorker paying taxes right now in order to close the deficit problems. So we're seeing a huge problem, and the answer in Mamdani's case is to go running to the state to raise the high taxes, as though that's going to be some long-term solution. Okay, it's a massive problem that they don't want to take care of these problems, and they want to continue to kick the can down the road. And I think we've reached a point in history where they can no longer kick the can down the road. And you know, a lot of we get a lot of pushback from people who bring up the past as though the future is destined to look like the past. Like we get a lot of people who think that the NYPD of now is the same NYPD of years ago. And it's in that same vein that we say that what happened in the past isn't necessarily going to happen in the future, because things are changing in the world. And that the for instance, the cities that were like the capitals of finance and brought in massive amounts of revenue years ago, 100 years ago, isn't the same as now. Before New York, there was London, okay, and before that, we go back to Rome and you know, on and on. And things change, and people need to realize that this is why you gatekeep your city, because if you don't, you're going to become a bygone city like those other ones were, as in terms of being financial hubs.
You know, thank God for political office for some of these people, because I think in private industry, they would never last. Because the reality is, you have to look at the past to make a reflection of the future and to actually make changes. And all that we see from politicians is to blame the past for their failures and not proceed forward. I mean, you think about private industry. If we just talked about in New York City, a small bodega or a store, and if you bought a store that was failing, let's say it was let's say it was just a small restaurant. If you bought a small restaurant that was failing, and you said, okay, I predict it's going to take me about anywhere from 12 to 18 months to get somewhere that I start making some revenue. And if you fail, that business goes away and dies with you. You can't say, oh, well, you know, the owner before me, it was mismanaged. It wasn't running right. They didn't oversee their chefs. They had a bad system. And that's why I failed. Well, now you failed and you're out of money. But when it comes to political office, we look at Mayor Bill de Blasio, former Mayor Bill de Blasio, who instituted the vaccine mandate, Eric Adams, who actually took it to the touchdown, and we lost senior leadership of the NYPD. We lost veterans, experienced police officers, and that costs money. It's not just turning it over to emasculate the police so we can get these new cops that, you know, that they love coffee and donuts and gestures to hug people. It actually costs money, because for every senior veteran cop or senior leadership with experience, it costs millions to make that replacement, if you ever actually do make that replacement. Because the three of us, and this is not being conceded, it takes years to replace the knowledge and experience that we had. Rob Lukash and Ron Layson leaving the police department, it will take millions of dollars to replace the amount of knowledge that they had, and years to get to that point, because it takes years of experience learning the police department. So cutting off that leg of the police department hurts financially. But we always see the first attack on budgets is through the NYPD. And public safety, to me, is not a cost that you could actually cut. Public safety has to be paramount, just as Eric Adams would say, right? Public safety is the key to prosperity, but yet that's where we're making the cuts. I do believe eventually they're leaning towards artificial intelligence because of private contracts and who actually benefits from it. But I think political office, well, we see time and time again, and I see the foreshadowing with Zohran Mamdani to say, hey, the budget, we're trying to catch up. Here's where we are. You need to elect me for the next 4 years, because I'm actually aware of it, and we're trying to make those steps in the right directions. So politics, if you ask me, it's not even a real job, because if you had a private store, you had your own business, you couldn't let it fail. You can't say, you know, if it doesn't fail in 3 years, I'll just try again the next 3 years or the next 4 years. Well, guess what? You're out of money. But politicians, and many that we see, just as in New York City, former Mayor Bill de Blasio, Eric Adams, and Zohran Mamdani, Andrew Cuomo, they're all exactly the same. It's almost like they know that they're going to fail, because failing allows them to have all the amenities and benefits and use the money. And they use New York City like it's their own bankroll. So it's a big joke. And again, I'm sure, Marlon, I'm sure you agree that New York City will continue with the NYPD to have massive overtime, because understaffing costs a lot of money. It's the ineffectiveness of this is far more than proper staffing.
And then so Adams, right? Adams, what does he do after that, right? He goes to Washington, D.C. He gets absolutely nothing. Biden tells him to F off, right? So now he comes back and he gets hard. And he starts talking about Abbott and he gets upset here. And he starts saying exactly what's going to happen. I'm either going to have to deal with this in my second term or I'm only going to be a one-term mayor, right? Because I can't not give money to illegals. I can't not give all this free shit to everybody. I can't take crumbs away from my friends that are all sitting on this panel. I can't do that. So I'm going to start crying now. So this is when people like, oh, Eric Adams, he knew what was happening. Really? So then why did he keep, if he knew what was happening and he knew what was going to happen, and clearly we just showed you he knew before he even got into office that by 2026 he was going to be dealing with at least a $10 billion budget deficit. Why didn't he back off any of the things he did instead of continuing to fund all of these insane things, even up until his very last day in office? So here he is. Here's the viral clip.
Support. And let me tell you something, New Yorkers. Never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. One time we were just getting Venezuela. Now we're getting Ecuador. Now we're getting Russian speaking coming through Mexico. Now we're getting Western Africa. Now we're getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City. And everyone is saying it's New York City's problem. Every community in this city is going to be impacted. We got a $12 billion deficit that we're going to have to cut. Every service in this city is going to be impacted. All of us. And so I say to you, as I turn it over to you, this is some of the most educated, some of the most knowledgeable, probably more of my commissioners and deputy commissioners and chiefs live in this community. So as you ask me a question about migrants, tell me what role you played. How many of you organized to stop what they're doing to us? How many of you were part of the movement to say, we're seeing what this mayor is trying to do and they're destroying New York City? It's going to come to your neighborhoods. All of us are going to be impacted by this. I said it last year when we had 15,000. I'm telling you now with 110,000. The city we knew we're about to lose. And we're all in this together, all of us. Staten Island is saying, send them out to Manhattan. Manhattan is saying, send them out to Queens. Queens is saying, send them out to Brooklyn. No, it's not the game we can play.
So here he is when he realizes the reality. Like, I can't keep doing this. I need this money from the federal government. So he starts saying, like, he's not the mayor. What are you doing? Well, we're not giving illegals all of this free shit. We're not telling them, hey, come to New York and you're going to get a free hotel room and you're going to get $300 a week on a debit card and you're going to get free healthcare and free Ubers and free Uber Eats. Obviously, it's his fault. Because if we weren't doing that, if he wasn't intentionally misrepresenting right to shelter law, he could have stopped all of this spending, but he needed to. Why? Because of crumbs. His friends had the crumbs. Who had the security contract? Who had the food contract? Who had the car contract? Who had the hotel contract? Right? And they were all no bid contracts going out. Right? And so he goes, oh, well, after this, he starts, I'm going to go down to the border and I'm going to see what's going on down there. But this is him right after he says this. And that thing goes viral and everyone's like, oh, yeah, all of a sudden Eric Adams woke up. And I'm like, Eric Adams didn't wake up. This is him afterwards. Here he is after like he goes on, he's crying. This is going to kill us. We're not going to be able to do this. Here's Eric Adams. Listen to what he has to say. Listen to the mayor of New York City. This is his plan. This is how he navigated New York City. It's like, oh, this is going to crush us. This is going to crush us. But hey.
We believe the borders should remain open. That's the official position of this city. But we have made it clear there should be a decompression strategy that we could properly deal with the volumes that's coming into our city. And no cities should have to carry the burden of the national government.
So I'm going to give the illegals everything. I want the borders to remain open, but I just want someone else to pay for what I want to do. I just want someone else to pay. And then after he says that, he goes down to the border. And when he gets there, he welcomes more of them. He says, oh, don't worry. I got billions in the back that I have to fund this. So I'm not really worried about it. I'm just coming down here to see what's going on down here. And so he continues his whole term to spend the money. He doesn't care. He just believed that somebody else should pay for all the promises he made. That's all Eric Adams did. That was Eric Adams' tenure as the mayor, is I'm going to do all this stuff, and I expect someone else to manage it, someone else to pay for it, and at the end of the day, I'm not accountable for any of
it. Yeah. The story about Eric Adams is going to be about hubris. I think he thought that he would be able to do all of this and then go, like you said, go begging to the feds, or whether it's Biden or Trump, that he was going to go begging to them, and because of he was going to be able to schmooze them and get the money he needed to continue kicking the can down the road. And we saw how that worked out for him. Okay, and again, this has been talked about before, that this day was coming. Okay, this day was coming, and instead of you fixing the problems, we talk a lot of times about how the NYPD doesn't like to fix the inherent problems that cause certain incidents, whether it's an incident that goes sideways with the public, or if it's an issue of corruption. The NYPD doesn't like to fix the inherent problem. Instead, it likes to find a scapegoat and continue kicking the can down the road. The city does it too. That's the NYPD gets that from the city, because that's the city's playbook. Kick the can down the road, instead of solving the problems. And I think in a lot of ways, that's because if you were to solve the problems, like John just talked about, the crumbs won't flow. The establishment and this whole system of cronyism, the 1%ers, right? They all benefit from this cronyism. Okay. And if you were to really have a properly functioning city government, then there wouldn't be any crumbs for if you got buddies in the security industry. You wouldn't have crumbs if we had a properly functioning apparatus to give out contracts, to properly vet, look at the building situation, and how Ingrid, the latest news is that Ingrid Martin got a what is it? Earrings, diamonds for being able to push through certain building contracts. So if you have a properly functioning government, these crumbs don't flow, and that's a problem for the 1%ers on the job and in the city, because then they're no longer the 1%ers. You see, then we have a system that would be fair. We have a system that would be efficient, and in a lot of ways they benefit from it being inefficient, because then they get to use their connections to get their ways. But again, this, many people talked about this, and you could see it in their own budget here. Okay, this was on its way. And by the way, the cost of those migrants is projected to balloon to 12.5 billion by 2027. So we're still paying for that, and we're gonna continue paying for that, and it's a massive problem.
I also see the other problem is this. We talk about let's talk about having a strong tax base, right? Talk about whether there should be increase on taxes or not. I think it's a very simple solution. You don't have to increase taxes. You just have to make people want to stay. You have to make people want to stay in New York City, and you also have to make businesses attracted to stay in New York City also. So if people are leaving, and businesses are leaving, well, that destroys your strong tax base. So the ideology, and I think the blame should be on Eric Adams' administration and also Zohran Mamdani, even though he's new to office, because his plan makes people and especially businesses want to leave. They have to find a better way to keep retirees in New York City and in New York State. They have to find a way to incentivize people. If you're a retiree, there's absolutely no reason to stay in New York City or New York State. The smart person when you retire is to leave, go to places like Florida, go to places like South Dakota, things like that, where you have a better tax base. It's more retirement friendly. So, and also small business. John, don't we often talk about it? Eric Adams is like the Antichrist when it comes to small business. And I believe Zohran Mamdani is the same, because we talk about business, government expansions, which is completely anti-small business. So they're pushing out small business. They're pushing people out. So if people don't stay and businesses don't stay, that hurts a strong tax base. So we don't have to increase taxes. The solution it should be is, how do we keep people, how do we incentivize them that they want to still be a New York City resident or still be a business that operates out of New York City?
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is, like, like a lot of times, like Marlon, when he talks about the fiscal crisis, and a lot of people, like, everyone's always like, it's all of this is inevitable and all this is coming home to roost and we can't fix it. And I just don't subscribe to that. I think that all of this is easily fixed. I think that if we had good, competent governance, people who actually wanted to solve the problem, I believe that we could fix this. Why do I believe that? Because it's been done before. This isn't the first fiscal crisis that New York City has went through. This isn't the first fiscal crisis that this country is going to go through. Like, we've come out of the Great Depression. We've had depressions prior just in New York City. They called it the Great Panic in 1836 and everything. I'm sorry, not in 1836, in like 1880 something. There was something called the Great Panic, right? It was like a depression area. All these jobs went down. All of these businesses closed. We had a flood of immigration, both legal and illegal. And what happened as a result of it is, what government had to do is Tammany Hall and all of them, they had to stop with the crumbs. They had to actually do their jobs. They had to actually stop doing no-show jobs and hanging out in Miami when they're getting paid by the city of New York to govern, right? When they got elected. Like, they have to actually tone down and be like, oh my God, this is actually my responsibility. Oh wait, I'm the mayor. I ran to be the mayor. Oh, let me be the mayor now. Let me make the cuts. Oh, I'm the police commissioner. Oh, I'm the fire department commissioner. Oh, I run the schools. All right, let's see what we could do to hone in our budget. Like, that's what needs to be done. But New York City doesn't do that. We just throw money at bad policy, at bad decisions, at bad things, and we just keep going. So, here's Eric Adams when he's begging for his pardon, which doesn't really come his way of a pardon. They just drop the charges, an unprecedented thing. But here's him testifying in front of the House Committee on Sanctuary Cities. And he says that New York City spent $6.9 billion on illegal immigration. Now, it's totally an accurate number. The number is higher than double what he says. But this is what he says. Listen to him here.
How much did the city of New York actually spend on illegal immigration?
$6.9 billion of taxpayers.
$6.9 billion of taxpayer money. How much did the city?
At that point, it was already closer to about 13 billion. But he said 6.9 billion. But let's just do the math off of what he says, right? And I made this little chart a while back about it. Let's do the math. Let's just pretend it was only 6.9 million. Mind you, it's double this, maybe even triple it. So, but it's double this that he spent on illegal immigration. Now, you do it with Chicago, right? They didn't even spend $1 billion. You do it with Denver. They didn't even spend $1 billion. You do it with Boston. They spent $1 billion. You do it with San Francisco. They didn't spend $1 billion. You do it with Los Angeles. She spent $1.58 billion, right? So combine all of that. just based on that inaccurate number alone, Eric Adams spent more than every sanctuary city combined, right? And then I went further and I drilled down further on it. And I'm like, okay, what about states? What about these states? So then I went and I looked at sanctuary city states and I added up all the number of sanctuary states and cities. So if you take the exact amount of money that every sanctuary and city state combined spent on illegal immigration, and you included New York State into that figure, and we put them all the way in one category. This is all the states, excluding New York City, and you compare it to New York City. And mind you, New York State's budget for illegal immigration, most of it went to New York City. So it's not even really fair to keep them separate, but we do. New York City spent double what every sanctuary city and every sanctuary state combined spent. Why'd they spend double? It was because of Eric Adams' policies, Eric Adams' promises, and he gave away everything. That is why we are in the mess that we are in. You know, yeah, is Bill de Blasio to blame? Absolutely. Is those city councils under de Blasio and under Adams to blame? Absolutely. Where was Justin Brannan? Where was the finance chair, right? Vicky Palladino was calling out the budget. Brannan sending her memes, making fun of it, like, shut your mouth. We know what we're doing here, right? Where was the comptroller? Oh, he was busy dancing at parades. He thought he was getting paid to protest, right? Where were the last two controllers, right? Is everybody responsible for this budget? Absolutely everybody's responsible for this $12 billion budget deficit. But Eric Adams, for 4 years, was on autopilot. And not only was he on autopilot, he was spending money like a drunken sailor and did not care. He just figured somebody else would either come and save me, or it's going to be somebody else's problem, or I'll just lie my way through the next 4 years and fly by the seat of my pants and completely collapse New York City. And guess what? There goes your pensions. There goes your health care. There goes every single thing you worked for. And it's like, oh, wow, maybe all the little things mattered. Maybe all of the little mistakes here in and here out. And everyone's like, why do you guys care? Why do you care? Why do you care? You know, you only have millions of dollars in New York City. You only left hundreds of thousands of dollars in New York City. You only have property in New York City. Why do you care? I'm retired. I don't need to worry about any of this. Well, you know what? You're retired. You need to worry about it more than the guy that's working, because he'll still be getting paid and you won't.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, sure, we also get from a lot of guys that this has happened before and the city could get out of it. Yes. But the problem is, you have to start. The earlier you start, the better it is. Okay. And if the city is only now waking up, think about it now. If the city is only now waking up, think of what it has to do in order to start growing again and to start closing these gaps now. Now we haven't even started taking the first steps yet. We're still trying to reckon the fact that these problems are coming. So think how many years it's gonna take. Okay. Now this is why, again, we said back then that you gotta wake up. These unions gotta put pressure on it. These politicians gotta wake up and deal with this now. Get started now. And I'm going to bring up Detroit, for instance, right? Keep in mind, around the 60s, around the 50s and the early 60s, Detroit had around 1.8 million people in it. And after 1965, Detroit started losing people, you know? And now they're at 500,000. However, they've actually started waking up now. After what 75, 85, 90. So after what, 50 years, they finally wake up. 50 plus years, 60, they finally start waking up. Okay, this is the problem. The longer it takes for a city to wake up is the longer it's going to take to get out of the problems. Okay, and sure, like John just said, if you think this isn't your problem, it's going to be a problem, because do you have the time to wait for this to happen? Okay. Do you have the time for, if the city says we have to make drastic emergency cuts right now, we have to make drastic emergency adjustments right now, right? think how long it's going to take for them to get out of it. Okay. Do you have the time for this? Right. I'm in my early 40s right now. Right. Do I have, if the city doesn't wake up now, right? If the city has to continue making cuts and it's going to affect my garbage pickup, it's going to affect my streets, it's going to affect crime in my area. Do I have the time? Do I have 50 years? Do I have 40 years? Do I have 20 years to wait for them to wake the F up? Okay. No, I don't. Okay. No, I don't. And that's the point. The longer it takes for the city to wake up and to govern properly and to govern efficiently is a problem, because you don't have that time. Okay. And most other people don't. So what happens is people leave, which accelerates the problem even more.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. People leave, right? I'm talking about building a strong tax base. You don't have to raise taxes. You just need a strong tax base by incentivizing people to stay, and especially small business. I think Hunter, New York, won. My brother, how you doing? Nailed it. Hunter says more congestion pricing coming to New York City. Exactly. Congestion pricing does not help a strong tax base. And actually, it's just a toll. It doesn't fix any budgets. The congestion pricing does not fix any budgets. And we know, they're trying to administer that revenue through the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, which is the MTA, which is the most mismanaged organization we've ever seen, is the MTA. You can give the MTA $12 billion tomorrow, and somehow they'll destroy that also. So congestion pricing does not help the tax base. In fact, it actually leads to what we've been saying this entire time. Marlon, we've both been saying, is it causes people to leave. It causes small business to leave, because small business in Manhattan, especially a small business in Manhattan, for any small business that are left, right? It's mostly big corporations now. They're already running on a thin margin. So they can't afford to continue to stay in New York City when people have to come into New York City with another tax. And that's what congestion pricing is. So Hunter, New York, I agree with you. Congestion prices is another push to force people out of New York City. It's another push to force out small business. So this idea of raising taxes, I think, is silly. Same thing, John, we talk about. If I was mayor of New York City, which I would never want to be, I would not raise taxes and build a strong tax base, incentivize, find a way to keep people there and small business. Congestion pricing, that doesn't do it. Hurting your police department, that doesn't do it either. Public safety is what's going to keep people there. And having the NYPD understaffed costs more money, because you have to put more overtime on more overtime. Then you have more cops going sick because they're burning the candle on both ends. What we should be doing in the NYPD is not doing budget cuts. We should be cutting the chiefs that have been exploiting the NYPD. For everyone that has a bum ankle or some issue that they go 3/4 disability, those are the people bleeding the system. So let's not cut the NYPD. Let's cut out the fat. The problem is these chiefs that keep exploiting the pension system with their 3/4 disability pensions that, to me, they look and appear to be bullshit.
And the thing is, like, everyone's like trying to exonerate Eric Adams. Like, they just want to forget that, like, everything he did throughout his administration. Nin said he was going to leave, but he didn't. And he's saying, like, what incentive does a politician have to fix any of this? They know they're out in a few years. I don't know. I was raised, this is going to be hard for you to understand then, but I was taught through my faith to be, whatever you do it to the best of your ability. Whatever you put your name behind, you do it to the best of your ability. So when you go out on TV every day and you tell people, I care about you, I love you, I care about this city, I love this city, I love this department. When you do that, you should actually mean it. And what's the incentive? The incentive is to actually do the right thing and not be a self-serving, to take the job for the salary that you agreed to, not because what you're going to get on the back end, not because of the friends you're going to make, not because of the contracts you're going to make, not because the free dinners you're going to get, not because any of that, not for the fake bullshit coin that you're going to sell and grift around anti-Semitism when you get out. None of that. You should do it because you actually care. And if you don't care, you shouldn't be doing it. We say it about cops. I've heard you say it about cops, right? If you don't care, don't do the job, right? And the same's true for politicians. And the same's true for people that claim to care about New York City. If you care about New York City, we need to be involved in the political process. We need to be honing in on every single little thing that our elected representatives do, not only in New York City, but across this country. We all want good governance. All of us agree. I don't care. Democrat, Republican, socialist, communist, libertarian. We all want good governments. But none of us want to do the labor that it takes for us to have good governance. And that's what we need. We need advocacy. We need voting. We need to stand behind people that are actually going to do that. We need to put people of character in these positions, in every position, from the bottom up. There needs to be people of character in our government that are our elected representatives. The majority of people actually do care. You know, it just seems like the majority of people in politics are doing it for self-serving reasons. Here's Eric Adams 6 months ago where he's pretending like, no, this wasn't me, man. I don't know. Everything's good. Here he is 6 months ago. This is Eric Adams 6 months ago. And now he's pretending like, what are you talking about? This has nothing to do with me. It's like, dude, the guy's been in office for 4 weeks. What are you talking about? This has everything to do with you. Has everything to do with you.
Hey, New York, here's how we got stuff done this week. We passed our best budget ever with unanimous approval by the City Council. It's packed with historic investments that will make our city safer, more affordable, and improve quality of life. We announced major crimes were down in June for the second quarter of 2025. Since the start of the year and for the last 6 quarters in a row. We even had a record low number of shooting victims in the first half of 2025, proving our public safety strategy isn't just talk, it's working. We marked the closure of the Roosevelt Hotel, ending a key chapter in our city's historic response to the asylum seeker humanitarian crisis. When a lot of folks wanted to step back, New York City stepped up and led the nation in our response. We launched the biggest summer streets ever with 22 plus miles of car-free fun. We opened new public restrooms in all 5 boroughs. We also announced another gang takedown in Brooklyn, this time of the dangerous Road to Riches gang, taking more violent criminals and more illegal guns off our streets. And we gave away over 100,000 free tickets to the Macy's 4th of July fireworks so more New Yorkers could get prime views to the iconic show. That's just some of what we did during this past holiday week. Let's keep at it next week.
So he told you right there, it was the best budget ever. He solved everything. He handled everything. He navigated you out of COVID. He navigated you out of the asylum seeker crisis. He navigated you through this. Oh, yeah, and here's the bill that I left you with. See you later. Here's the bill. Make sure you buy my token so we can bring anti-Semitism down.
Yeah.
Oh, and don't worry about all the liquidity we pulled out of it either. It's all good. Everything's good. Don't worry about it. I didn't take a salary. I'm not taking a salary yet. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, you know what I find funny is as he was saying that Jessica Tisch was standing next to him, and we all know that was BS. But what I find interesting is that I said it before that at some point that Zohran was gonna have to make cuts, and one of those cuts may actually be her Q teams, right? And he's already appointing a cost savings officer in every agency. We don't know if that's actually a position or just pressure that he's putting on these agencies to make cuts. But I'm curious again how long her Q teams is going to stay on how long her Q team initiative has. How much longer they have to go before he cuts that? Because again, cuts are gonna have to be made somewhere. And if he's already stopping cops and sanitation from taking out homeless encampments, which I believe is something the Q teams does, is how much longer do they have to go before he cuts them and he tells them get back on patrol, because I need you on patrol, because we can't hire any more cops. You got to do more with less, and I need you patrol takes priority over other stuff. So I said months ago that was coming, and I think we're like knocking on the door now. So I'm curious how much longer, what's the shelf life of Q teams? How much it has longer to go?
I mean, that's a great point. And I think what's important to note here also is where exactly is Zohran Mamdani going to cut within the NYPD? And I think that's a good point, Marlon, that you make an emphasis on potentially the Q teams. And most likely it's going to be a rebrand also of SRG. But I think what's interesting is that Zohran Mamdani is talking about cuts, but then he's talking about his whole social safety public plan, which would actually cost more money because now we have to hire social workers to take care of the homeless, and they need training, they need vehicles, they need real estate. So that's going to cost money. So his alternative response to policing, which is this social safety public safety plan, actually doesn't cause any budget cuts. It actually causes more funding, and it causes more spending because we have people that have to be hired. So we need recruitment to hire these people. We need to figure out how to retain them, come up with some type of plan. Are they going to get training? What is the logistics? As I said before, the real estate, where will they be housed? They're not going to be working from home, right? Because they're going to be out in the field, these social workers. So just showing you that Zohran Mamdani's entire campaign is already falling on its face. He can't tell you that. He has to foreshadow it with other issues by taking the blame of Eric Adams' administration. Now, the reality is I do blame Zohran Mamdani, even because when you take over a role, you're supposed to come over of solutions. That's why Eric Adams is not reelected, right? Because his plan is an epic fail. So you can't just say, well, he failed. Oh, well, and just throw your hat in the air. You have to say, he failed. Here's why. Here's our solution that is going to work moving forward. But instead, what Zohran Mamdani is telling you is he's going to do the same thing Eric Adams did. We're going to cut the budget in the NYPD, which means understaff. And if you understaff the NYPD, it actually has the opposite effect, which causes more spending because cops will be doing overtime. And again, I think we need to take a hard look at the 3/4 disability pensions coming out of the NYPD. It's interesting to me. I would love to see an analysis on how many chiefs actually put in to go for 3/4 disability pensions and how many actually get accepted. And what are these type of injuries? And I think there really needs to be an analysis because also we need to look at these pensions. And anyone here who's retired, like myself and John, and God willing, hopefully Marlon gets restored and gets to retire, that your pension is not as sacred as you want to believe it. We have to protect these pensions because if we get irresponsible people in office, as we already saw with Brad Lander, our pensions are at stake. I do not believe our pensions are a guarantee. The only thing that's guaranteed is death and taxes. Your pension is not in that category. So we could have a problem. Marlon often talks about Detroit, cities like Baltimore. They've had many issues with pensions. So have Chicago. Your pensions are not as I will say this. The pension system in New York is stronger than Chicago, is stronger than Baltimore, stronger than Detroit, but it's not impervious.
Yeah. To our credit, we have Wall Street, and the city gets a lot of tax money from Wall Street. But again, the problem is that Wall Street is moving to South Florida, and it's also moving to Texas because BlackRock is opening up the Texas Stock Exchange, and they already have more finance people in Dallas right now than there are in New York City, by the way. Okay, that was in the paper maybe a week or two ago. And again, South Florida has attracted a ton of businesses, and not just from places like Chicago, but from New York too. So you can see the outward flow, the outbound migration of finance. And once we get to, Trump in particular is pushing for digital money and crypto. And on if the future of finance is digital, you could do a lot of it remotely. And a lot of it will depend on AI and automation, in which case you don't need people physically on Wall Street. So that now if you don't need them physically on Wall Street, you've got an even bigger tax problem on hand. Okay. And again, these are all issues that should have been thought. If me, idiot detective who's fired, could figure this out years ago, then what about the people whose job it is to sit down and think about this all day in the halls of city government? They should have been thinking about stuff like this years ago, but it doesn't seem they have, because if they did, we wouldn't be talking about the city's $12 billion budget deficit right now.
Yeah, so it's funny. You know, I mentioned it before. Like they called it like the Great Panic. I think it was 1893, right? So it was the Gilded Age, New York City. So what happened is like they was a huge deficit in the budget. Tons of layoffs. People start panicking. Businesses go out. People lose jobs. And what happens is Tammany Hall and all the corruption, like, oh shit, we got to be the government now. And so now they start looking at like, all right, where do we cut? Like, where do we cut? Where could we start doing that? And so this is a newly elected Speaker of New York City Council, Julie Menon. So listen to her. This is what she had to say here.
We have to focus on what we have control over. Right now, in the conversations I've had with the governor, she was very, very clear that she is not willing to do anything on taxes. So given that that is the position, we in the city council have to figure out, well, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here is we've got to identify savings in the budget. I've outlined a number of ways we can find savings. I assure you we're going to find additional savings.
So why this isn't consistently done prior to there being a problem, I don't know. But you could see the panic now. You could see the panic from all the elected officials where now they're like, oh, man, we really got to pay attention to what we're doing here. So that's where we're at now. Now it's like it really is. Marlon said it earlier, like everything has come home to roost. The chickens have come home to roost. This is the come to Jesus moment. Like, all right, what we were doing does not work, right? We have to figure something out here. And so, you know, I think that's where you're going to see where now they're going to be talking about what are we going to do? And again, the easy button is always going towards the New York City Police Department. It just is. It's just the easy button. They don't want to do away with any of the bad policies that brought us here. It's amazing, man, you know, and including, you know, Adams in July 8th of 2025. He dedicates $120 million. What is it for? It's for free legal assistance to illegals. So if you're here illegally and you have a problem with ICE 6 months ago, $120 million. Is this a program that New York City taxpayers should be paying for at this moment? They're going to be talking about cuts to city services. And where they're going to go is they're going to go right to the New York City Police Department. They're not going to go to the teachers union. They're not going to go to the fire department. They're going to go right to public safety. And like we said, Zohran Mamdani continues to bash Eric Adams. His fiscal accounting was off. He intentionally mismanaged the budget. He intentionally lied about this. He's corrupt. He's unethical. He's this. But it's okay. We trust his crime numbers. So it's okay. It's good enough that we're going to now have to, you know, we're going to have to make hard decisions here. So this is $120 million. This should be the first thing that gets put. This should be the first thing that's vetoed. Why are we giving free legal assistance to anyone? Why are we spending $120 million of free legal? Oh, I'll tell you why. Because Eric Adams needs lawyers as friends because they got to represent him and he doesn't want to pay for it. Right? So if I give $120 million to these law firms, when I run into problems, like let's say I come up with this cockamamie snake oil and I do it by way of a crypto coin that says that if you buy it, anti-Semitism is going to go down because it's rose over 100% since I've been the mayor. So let's say I come up with this cockamamie idea, and then when you invest in it, all of the money gets pulled out. And now I have a problem because I have all these people that put millions of dollars into it now are suing me and want their money back, and the federal government's coming after me for wire fraud and all other stuff. I need friends that are attorneys. So hey, here's this $120 million. Is Zohran Mamdani going to cut this? I doubt it. So while city council is saying, oh, we're going to take a hard look at the budget, this should have been happening every year. Every year, we should be cutting the fat in New York City instead of having people that are fat, like Justin Brannan, in charge of the finance chair, where they're just slobs and they're just handing this money out to their friends and they don't care. This is what this is. Are there going to be hard decisions made? 100%. But do we have faith that they're going to be the right decisions? I don't. And why don't I? Because based upon the rhetoric, the reality of it is much different than what it is. And what we see is from politicians time and time again, they're more beholden to their rhetoric than they are to the reality. And they'll just get up and lie to you and make bad decision after bad decision. Again, we have the most incompetent people in this country running our government, and it's our own fault because we're not willing to put in the work to have good governance. We're not willing to be involved in the political process to have good governance. We're not willing to do the hard labor, and this is what we get. We get the worst, dumbest in charge of us.
It's true. And in that, Adams has also touted that New York City has we've had job growth, and that's not correct. What we've had growth in wage, like low wage jobs, okay, low wage service jobs, like the delivery guys, okay, and meanwhile we've lost a lot more jobs since 2020, and again, these are all issues that those same politicians that John just named, nobody was talking about it. Nobody seems to think it's a problem that the tech sector in New York City is flatlined, that we've lost like 500,000 jobs since 2020, right? And when even if you look at millionaires, right, who now Mamdani wants to tax, right? Well, we've lost our share of millionaires already too. Whether you may think the rich eat too much off of the system, but I'm sorry to let you know that we still need rich people because again, they pay a higher share of property taxes. I mean, higher share of taxes when it comes to income. So we still need the rich people, okay? And again, we've already lost a ton of them to, guess where? Florida and Texas, So these are all issues that all those politicians have ignored, and this is why you need efficient city government, and you need all the little problems that we talk about. They all contribute to one bigger problem of an inefficient New York City. Okay, and nobody seems to have cared. And now we're seeing the bigger problem here, and you're gonna have to care about it now. The problem is now that we're kind of like the car is almost speeding off of the cliff, and now we're trying to fix the brakes, when you should have been doing it like blocks down the road before we even got to this position.
I think you mentioned it, but I think it's important to talk about. So minimum wage in New York City and New York State has been raised, and the question is, does minimum wage actually increase the economy? And I believe it doesn't. It actually hurts it, especially small business. So big corporations like Target and things like that, Home Depot, they absorb it. It doesn't really affect them, but small business get really affected by raises on minimum wage. And ultimately what it does is it actually puts more people on the street, because if you're someone, like you said, a service worker that's not making a high income and the minimum wage is raised, well, then small businesses are going to hire less people. They're going to find other avenues and other paths to actually do the work, find other administrative services to actually control that work and to have less hires. So it completely backfires. So to your point, the reason why I mentioned that, to your point, it's absolutely, we need the rich. The rich are it's a key element, especially in a metropolis like New York City, which is one of the richest and the economical wheels of the entire world. We need these big corporations. So not the big corporations. We need the elites, the rich people, to want to stay in New York City, and they pay a lot in taxes. So this idea when Zohran Mamdani or other politicians tell you that they'll raise the tax on the rich, well, they already pay a big portion of it. And ultimately, what do? They just pack up, and leave. And that hurts New York City. So we're talking about all these things that come down to, and which I believe is the economic hold of New York City or any state is a strong tax base. I think a strong tax base is so important for the economic wheel of any location, especially New York City.
Yep.
And the strong tax bases, not having pricing. It's by having small businesses stay in that city, have residents stay in that city. And ultimately what that does when people stay, that also keeps rents regulated. But as rents get higher, that forces people out. So, and also this idea of Zohran Mamdani giving out all these, rent-free locations is not realistic, because landlords have to upkeep places. And if we're going to have free rent or rent control, on a mass plane in New York City, that hurts the landlord. The landlord's not going to upkeep. We start to get places decimated, and that's how we end up having people leave. And then we get places abandoned, and that is also equivalent to more crime. So poverty, crime, minimum wage, all these things come together and they weave in together. So I just think Zohran Mamdani, his plan going forward seems to be just blame Eric Adams and not come up with actual solutions. The cut should not be from the NYPD. We should be looking at what bleeds the system. And what bleeds the system is civil lawsuits, settlements, not having litigation. These chiefs that bleed the system, the pension system, getting rid of our veterans, not just in the police department, in the fire department, our teachers. We got rid of veterans and replacing them with new people to have this whole DEI diversity movement, which ends, it actually costs more money. People think, oh, well, it costs less, right? John McCarry retires, Eric Dibb and Marla leaves the police department. We just saved $200,000 a year on each salary. No, you don't, because you have to replace them with new people who don't have the same experience. So that's costly, and they need more training, and you'll never get to level it out, and it doesn't even out.
I mean, one thing I'll say is, like, I just want to, like, when I say, like, the money shouldn't come from the police department, I'm not saying that the police department shouldn't have cuts, but and I think you agree with me too, Eric. Like, not for the actual operational frame of the New York City Police Department, but there is waste in the New York City Police Department.
Well said. Well, I agree.
And that's rooted out. We're talking about, you don't go after SRG. You don't go after the Counterterrorism Bureau. You don't go after the Detective Bureau. Correct. You don't go after the Patrol Bureau. That is all where your money should be going to. You don't take away from the operational aspect of the NYPD. Could it be managed better? Sure, that could be worked out. But that's not the place where we should be going to, especially at a time now when we're talking about, like, we're going to go after the SRG. It's like, you're going to go after the SRG. You know, it's like, are you out of your mind? But before we go on to the SRG, just one thing I want to point out. New York City, I believe, has a 104 in 2024. I believe they had $104 billion budget overall, right? $104 billion. So we're looking at a $12 billion budget deficit. I mean, come on, people. Let's really put this into reality right now. I pay you $104 billion a year. You owe $12 billion in credit card debt. You can't figure that out? You can't manage that math? I mean, I could easily do that. I could have that fixed in a month, dude. Like, I mean, this is, you just have to have the ability to say, all right, this is what we're not doing anymore, and this is what we're going to do. Hey, look, we're not going out to dinner every night anymore. It is what it is. We got to fix this. As soon as we get it fixed, we'll start to trickle the dinners back in. We got to get this fixed. We got to get money. You know, like, it is what it is. Like, and so here's Julie Menon again. She's taken over as speaker. I like what she's saying. I want to see what she's doing. So she talks about this. $42 billion in goods every year. So out of that $104 billion of the New York City budget, New York City procures $42 billion in goods and services, right? Listen to what she has to say here. And we called it out time and time again here that these contracts were lighting billions of dollars on fire. We were talking about it with Eric Adams, with these security contracts, with all of these no bid contracts. And by no bid means there's no oversight. There's no people looking at it. The controller's office has like 12 people in it. So they can't oversee all of the money that's going out, and they can't even manage the contracts. But before even managing the contracts and before the oversight of the contracts, we don't even have oversight on giving the contracts out. Which what Eric Adams and everyone did after COVID is say, emergency, everything's an emergency, so we're just going to send $100 million here, $500 million there, and no one's even looking over the contract and saying, wait, do we need this? Does this make sense? Why are we doing this? Is this something that we should be paying for? So $42 billion. Listen to Julie Menon here.
Our city procures over $42 billion in goods and services annually, but the current system is characterized by massive gaps in transparency and accountability. Under current law, there's no time limit on emergency contracts, so they can go on in perpetuity. My first bill addresses the systemic abuse of the emergency procurement process. By limiting emergency contracts to 30-day terms and requiring a hard 15-day deadline for submission to the controller, we are ensuring that any future emergency is treated for what it is, a temporary state of action and not a blank check to subvert the law. The second bill I'm sponsoring targets a lack of visibility into subcontractor responsibility. Currently, prime contractors can use a web of subcontractors to hide conflicts of interest or provide false information to get a foot in the door. Good procurement practices shouldn't depend on the integrity of any individual mayor. We owe it to the taxpayers to ensure that every single dollar spent is tied to a verifiable service and a responsible vendor.
Shots fired
Our
at
city
Eric Adams
procures
again.
over
Because you heard what she said. It shouldn't rely on the individual integrity of a mayor. She's talking solely about Eric Adams there and all of those no bid contracts that went out the window. So I went through all the bills last night on city council desk. And Dan, I'm sorry. I looked at everyone's bill. Phyllis, I'm sorry. I went through all the fucking bills and I'm like, what is this bullshit? What is this? Like, what are we doing? Like, there was some things that I was like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. The majority of it, you know what it looked like to me? It looked like everybody had a homework assignment for 2026, and some people just threw bullshit on paper. Oh, yeah, I'm going to do this local law that does, it makes the plants happy. We're going to study talking nice to the plants. We're going to study Marlin's Bitcoin hat. We're going to study, one of the bills, one of my favorite bills was? One of my favorite bills, and we'll talk about it at a later date, but one of my favorite bills was we are going to amend a local law to make it illegal to use AI to make memes about politicians. I wonder who they should have called that the Finest Unfiltered meme bill, the chief meme officer, Marlon Bethel bill. That's what they should have called it. Anti-Marlon Bethel. Like, that's this is what New York City is concerned with. Don't make fun of us. Don't do memes while we're spending all your money and it's going out the door through no bid contracts. So I applaud Julie Menon for putting that up, because that should have been done. But here's my problem, Julie. This should have been getting called out for 4 years. Every single contract, he should have had his foot to the fire. We should have had people out there investigating the contracts and the work that these vendors were claiming to do, including in the not-for-profits, and you guys weren't doing any of it. You guys are all playing like you're in a part-time job in city council, and you're not.
Yeah, I gotta know who put that bill in there, John. Yeah, because I gotta make some.
I got it.
memes
I'll
about
send
that
it to you.
person.
I got it. I'll send it to you later.
That's
after we're done.
crazy. That's craziness. That means I have to. Am I gonna have a ESU knocking on my door in a year or two? Yeah.
We're all going to jail, bro. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah.
If that passes,
It's only a matter of time.
if that passes, I'm gonna have to do like a monthly trip into New York City.
It's
You
only a matter of
remember
time,
we put
brother.
out a meme a while ago about that. It was from Inglourious Bastards, the movie, where
Yeah.
the guy was like, it was Kaz, but Kaz, apparently like that there was news back then that Kaz was that the job was asking guys if you were sharing memes, So the meme we put out was Kaz addressed like the guy from the German soldier in Inglourious Bastards, who's telling the people he was talking to, "Oh, you're hiding Jews in the basement, huh?" And instead, we were like, "Oh, you're hiding memes. We know you got the memes in the basement, huh? You're hiding those memes." Is that what's coming next? You know, I can't believe we're actually here. You know, I can't believe the nonsense.
Oh, we're here, brother.
Goes along.
Look,
yeah,
look at Miami, Russia, brother. We're here. We're here.
It's crazy, bro. It's crazy. You know, we talked about before about the boondoggles in this city government. You know, and one of those is, you know, the 800 million. I'm not surprised that the mess that's going on with the contracts, right? And the fact that city council is looking at it, because when you have the boondoggles like the CMS program, which is housed in the mayor's office of criminal justice, I believe, and you have a budget of $800 million, okay, $800 million for that, and that includes things like the violence interrupter program. You know, it's no surprise that, you know, the contract situation's a mess, because, you know, the mayor, you look at things inside the mayor's office itself and they're a mess. You know, think of it, $800 million for that nonsense. You know, and again, this program works hand in hand with the NYPD, by the way. So this is just to go back on what John said, that it's not about taking money away from the operational side of NYPD, but we can go into a lot of the BS, you know, and cut that.
Marlon, it's Natasha Williams. A local law to amend the administrative code of New York City in relation to prohibiting the unauthorized depiction of public officials by artificial intelligence. Like, and you know, I had just purchased like this book from there was an illustrator, and I was telling Marlon about it. I was like, you'll like the new Thomas Nast. The guy's name was Thomas Nast, and there was this publication called Harper's Weekly, right? And what Thomas Nast did was he created all of these images. I'll bring one up a little later, maybe, or another day. But he drew all of these images of Boss Tweed and Tammany Hall and corrupt cops, and he would publish them. And they hated his guts. Like, they wanted to throw him in jail. And like Boss Tweed's like, this guy's got to stop. He can't be drawing these photos about me. You know, he can't do this. And so this is something that's been going on forever. This is called your First Amendment right to make fun of your politicians, to say nasty things about your politicians, to advocate for and against your politicians, right? So this is something that's been happening forever. Whether it's AI or a handwritten thing, this bill is insane. I mean, but like literally when I went through all the bills, that's what it was, like things like this. I'm like, is this a joke? Like, what world are these? Where do they live? Like, I want to just go up and like knock on their heads. I'm telling you, like, I'm getting very close. I'm getting very close. Like, my kids are getting old. I got a couple more years. I could 100% easily move back to New York City, run for city council, and I don't care if I get one bill passed. I don't care if I'll just call out every bull crap thing that they're doing, because this is ridiculous, man. But this is what it is. We're facing a huge crisis here, and this is what they're doing. Don't make fun of me.
Oh, it's absolutely ridiculous. But at least they said AI. So, Marlon, if you want to handwrite them or you want to do it, you know, on your own artist work, you're good. As long as it's not AI. It's the most ridiculous thing, but it's funny. But I'm glad we brought up city council, right? Because we're putting all the blame on Eric Adams and we're putting all the blame on Zohran Mamdani. Well, they should take blame, but the city council the city council is to blame also, because the mayor doesn't do the budget alone. The mayor proposes the budget. The city council votes on it. And the problem is each city council member is trying to bring money to their district so that they can show their people, hey, look, I bring money. What does that do? Every time people are competing with each other and they're trying to bring money to their district, that makes the budget grow also. So I think city council is to blame also. They approve spending increases every year. Improve spending increases when it comes to Civilian Complaint Review Board, spending increases with the mass legislation we've seen. So the city council should have a huge part in blame. Listen, Eric Adams is an epic fail. I think Zohran Mamdani will be the same, but we have to put blame where it belongs. And that's what city council. City council is a big part of that. What'd you get? Someone wrote something funny? Oh.
Lynn said, "Great, John. I can't wait for you to take up more media real estate for your bullshit."
That's hilarious. You know what, Nin? I'm starting to like you. I'm starting to like you, brother.
We agreed a lot with Nin today. I gotta say, he doesn't know that we did, but we did.
Yeah, and Nin didn't call me a violent dickhead today. That's pretty impressive. One day. The day is short. The day is short.
He's getting soft. He's getting soft now.
But am I right, John? I think that city council has just as much blame as the mayors. They have to approve these budgets, and they're all compete with each other. And the funny part is, after they have all this increased spending, then they're like, when they have a problem, they want to know where the money went. Well, where do you think it went? The same place that you increased all the spending in places where it didn't need to go. City council, to me, I mean, if the city council was to take over a bank, let's say tomorrow, they said, you know what, New York City Council, you're going to take over JP Morgan Chase.
Oh boy,
that bank will be bankrupt tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. No, yeah, look, they have just as much as they shirked their responsibility. They did. You know, like you said, they passed all of those budgets. They provided zero oversight on any of this, and that's their job. That's ultimately what you elect a city council representative to do, is to represent you in city government and to stand up for you and your tax dollars. And they didn't do that. And then the city controller's office, I get he's understaffed, but you should be getting more staff. And he didn't do his job either. He shirked his fiscal responsibility too, and he was playing politics because he thought he was going to be the mayor. And then even Mamdani, he was like kissing Mamdani's ass when he realized that Mamdani never brought him in the fray. Same thing with Brannon. You know, I was thinking Brannon was going to get a commissioner job, but I guess maybe not. You know, looks like Joe Borelli might get a commissioner job before Brannon. I don't know. You know, not good. The other Democrat, Borelli. So, and then, you know, again, we're on the topic of ideology not matching reality, right? So, you know, and Nin brought it up here too. He said, "Oh, you think Eric Adams has an ideology? He only cares about his wallet." Well, I first of all, I don't think that any of our politicians are principled at all, and that includes everybody, right? So you could name whoever you'd like in there. I don't believe that the overwhelming majority of our politicians are principled people at all. So when I say their ideology, I don't mean that they buy into it, that it's their religion, that they actually go home and preach it and they sit at the dinner table and they talk about it and they think it's real. I'm talking about the ideology as far as what they sold to their base to con enough people into voting for them to get them into office. That's the ideology I'm talking about. So Zohran Mamdani, he campaigned around this ideology of he was going to disband the SRG. He was going to save New York City taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars from their lawsuits and their budget. But again, at an unprecedented time, I won't say unprecedented, but in recent history, where all of these protests, these First Amendment activities, these illegal activities that are shielded as First Amendment activities, all of these things that are happening, they're happening in number every single day on New York City streets. For you to say, I'm going to take out the force that actually handles that, the best trained force to actually handle that, the SRG, that's a problem now. And the reality smacking him in the face where he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, so listen to what happens here at this press conference.
And then I know on the campaign trail you talked about disbanding the SRG. Is that an inefficiency? Could you see disbanding it? I believe that it would save the city, if we didn't have the SRG, like over $100 million.
So I'll start with the second question, then go to the first. Yes, I continue to believe that we need to disband the SRG. And I'm currently in conversations with the police commissioner about the ways in which we can do so that are operational. And I believe that we should do so not on the basis of any fiscal need, but frankly on the need to decouple the counterterrorism responsibilities within the department from police response to First Amendment exercise.
And then,
so, and just for clarity, the night before this, SRG, I think, locked up 50 people at a protest that turned illegal. So just for clarity on this, he's like, yeah. I think that we should do this. It's the right thing to do because they should be fighting counterterrorism. Counterterrorism, unfortunately, if you go through history, if you go through the history of New York City, if you could start from the 1800s all the way through to the 1970s, all the way through till today, that we've always had our anarchists homegrown domestic terrorism, it all stems out of violent political rhetoric from these protests. So policing these protests is part of the counterterrorism plan. I just don't think he knows it. What do you guys think about this?
Yeah, I think that, so the title of this episode is Zohran's Choices, and it's order or bankruptcy. And as we talked about in the first part, you know, the city is teetering on a fiscal crisis, right? So and as I just showed you before, like we've lost 600,000 jobs. The tech sector in New York City is flatlining, and we've already lost millionaires, right? So you know, for the choice is a stark choice. Okay, it's either you have order in the city, or you have bankruptcy. And by that I mean you either have order, or you're going to continue losing, all right, what you're already losing right now. Okay, because after 2020, as I just showed in that chart, we lost 500,000 people. We lost 500,000 jobs, right? If you remove the unit that's in charge of disorder control, and who every weekend it seems is out there trying to manage the protests, right? And you let these protests get even more out of hand than they already are because of restrictions put on them by the legislature, right? You're going to create an environment that's not friendly to businesses, and it's not conducive to making people feel like they have a great quality of life here, and that they want to remain here. And you're just going to accelerate the problem that we are already facing right now, which is potential bankruptcy. So the title of this show, again, is you either have order or you have bankruptcy. And this is also it's a question of, does Zohran want, how committed is he to his ideology? Because if he's really committed to that ideology, right, and he disbands SRG, and he riles up these protesters, and he pushes them to go protest for ICE and all this stuff, right? He's going to become a one-term mayor, just like Eric Adams. Okay, so it's a stark choice he's facing right now.
So, it sounds all nice and dandy, right? Especially to the layman's person that doesn't understand police work, or the average New York City resident that doesn't really understand the nuances of police work. They're selling this idea that what we see on a daily basis are your average protest where people are exercising their rights to free speech, and they're exercising their rights to assemble and protest. And that's not the case at all. What we see time and time again is what's these protests that are teetering around pretty much their violent riots, or they're impeding the quality of life of New Yorkers, and they're committing crimes and violations. They're obstructing traffic. They're taking over locations. They're impeding on the lives of New York City. These are not First Amendment activities. And the idea that SRG should not be a part of the counterterrorism apparatus is just another complete bullshit lie, because to me, those are acts of domestic terrorism. When groups get together and they impede on the quality of life of New Yorkers, and they try to change the ideology of people in New York City by stopping traffic, by laying in the street, by creating violence, by creating fear and alarm, that is domestic terrorism. So terrorism just doesn't have to be what's on foreign soil. It's also what's here in New York City. So Zohran Mamdani is trying to fantasize and romanticize this idea that SRG is this evil apparatus, where it's really important. And before, its name was Task Force. Doesn't matter what name it is. It's a group of men and women that are trained and that are mobile. The key to SRG, the most important key, is that they are a unit that is mobile, that could be, the logistics on it is that they can be moved around the city at any time to address these protests. And it happens every day in New York City. Every day we have small protests, big protests. So it's necessary to have. Nin is on again. He's on a task. Says, how many of these domestic terrorists get paid to protest, Eric? Well, apparently many of them do. And many of them do by Soros and other types of agencies. So that's a great question. And apparently John, I didn't know it, but Ninda's on the same team as us today. So I agree. I'm calling out the truth. It's nice to see you came around in. But what I see in New York City is the problem with the NYPD is they're trying to demonize this agency, SRG. The Civilian Complaint Review Board tried to demonize SRG. What they're trying to do is allow people to control the crowds in New York City, allow them First Amendment activities, which really are teetering around violence, to take control of the city so that we can have more budget cuts. That's why, and more cuts to the NYPD. That's why they want to remove SRG. So to your question and to our title, does he want order or bankruptcy? I believe he wants disorder and complete chaos. That's what I believe they want. Absolutely. Which means there will be bankruptcy and there will be total chaos and we'll be falling into complete dismay. That's where we're headed towards.
Yeah, I mean, so they look at the SRG, right? And so I like to have like an evidence-based discussion, which city council, the public advocate Jumaane Williams do not want to have. So in 2023, they held a hearing in city council about the SRG and why the SRG needed to be defunded. And when I sat through it, literally the data that CCRB gave, and we'll go through some of that in a little bit, the data that they gave at that hearing actually showed that the SRG operates 1,000 times better than regular officers do at protests, at First Amendment activities, and they're more easily identifiable. And that's from the executive director of the CCRB, John Darsh. John Darsh testified that one of the biggest issues they were having at First Amendment activities and protests and moments of civil unrest where now people are complaining on the police department is that they couldn't identify the cops. But they didn't have that problem with SRG officers because they have the shields on their helmet. They have a very unique, their shield numbers all over them, their names all over it. You know who those officers are. You're able to identify them. So there's literally no data other than emotion on why you want to defund the SRG. The SRG compromises, since their inception, compromises less than 1% of every CCRB. Less than 1% of the total amount of CCRBs since their inception comes from SRG. And if you think about it, in reality, their CCRBs should be much higher because the average cop isn't responding to these protests every day. They're not. It's the SRG that's there. It's the community affairs that's there. Who's going to go in and make those arrests, though? At those First Amendment things, at when they turn illegal, or at these planned shutdowns of critical infrastructure, it's going to be the SRG. They're going to be the ones that move in to make the arrest. So you would expect, when you're dealing with agitators, when you're dealing with people that are organized and that are there to push back and fight against New York City government and fight against the New York City Police Department and file complaints against the New York City Police Department, you would expect those CCRB numbers to be much higher. Now, again, does this getting a CCRB mean that you're a bad cop? No, because you can't control it. You could be the nicest person in the world. You could follow the law. You could follow all your training. You could have the best temperament in the world. And I could file a complaint against you right now, and you have a CCRB. Does that make you a bad cop? It doesn't. And, that's been weaponized time and time again. But just looking on that fact, the fact that they compromised less than 1% of all of the CCRBs since their inception, I mean, that shows right there they're operating much more efficiently and much more effectively than the rest of the NYPD. So here's like the talking point. And I'm pulling up Tiffany Caban here because I could have pulled up Jumaane Williams, or I could have pulled up Althea Stevens, or any of these other, they're talking based on emotion. And now Zohran Mamdani is the mayor of New York City, and he shouldn't be talking anymore on emotion. We should be talking fact. I testified at this hearing, and I labeled out at this hearing that there was not one data point given from anyone in the city council, not the public advocate, not anybody else. The only thing we're hearing on why we need to disband the SRG is all stuff out in La La Land because they don't like the way they look, and they don't like the fact that they are effective at their ability to shut down these acts that turn illegal when they take over critical infrastructure, when they take over our roadways, when they take over our mass transit systems, or when they take over public sidewalks and businesses or college institutions. They are an effective force. That is, they don't say that here, but just listen to Tiffany Caban, right? Former assistant district attorney. She likes to tout her law degree. You would think we would have an evidence-based discussion, a fact-based discussion. Listen to why she wants the SRG brought down.
Okay, Councilmember Caban, followed by Councilmember Hanif.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, CCRB, for showing up and for trying to do your work without a lot of the mechanisms you need or the staffing that you need. I'm pissed. I'm looking out on a packed room full of New Yorkers who desperately need and undeniably deserve true public safety, and I can't take my eyes off of the empty seats where NYPD should be sitting today. Shame on them for not showing up. And it says here in their written testimony that on advice of counsel, they are, quote, not able to answer any questions at this time. And as a trial attorney, I call bull. They could have shown up with counsel. They could have taken our questions, and counsel could have indicated on the record each and every time their advice for them to remain silent or answer some of the questions and expand on what they did include in their testimony. It's bull. And best believe that I had questions, that we had questions that will remain unanswered because the NYPD brass is scared of accountability. They're afraid that submitting to the bare minimum of oversight of the city council would expose the rot at the core of the SRG. They are terrified that they might have to tell the truth and take steps to fix what they've broken. So instead, they run away when they should be sitting in those seats. They ought to hang their heads in shame over this act of utter cowardice. If you can't face the people's elected council, you have no business billing us for your unlimited overtime and disgraceful misconduct settlement fees. Even in the time since we all entered this chamber this morning, in the Times, we saw news broken that the people of the city are going to have to pay out millions upon millions of dollars to compensate protesters abused and mistreated by police during the summer of 2020. And those very same police, with the opportunity this morning to take some responsibility for their actions, are nowhere to be seen. This should have been the final straw for the SRG, the final proof that they are a rogue, unaccountable squadron. And it is particularly offensive because at the inception of this unit, the city played on New Yorkers' still painful trauma from the September 11th attacks and promised that the SRG would keep us safe from terrorism. And instead, the SRG has become a poster child for mission creep, its headcount ballooning to nearly 3 times its intended size, and its activities extending to everything from violently cracking down on legitimate protests to humiliating our homeless neighbors and evicting them from their encampments. And so how dare they show such disdain for the people of New York City this morning? How dare they show and hold such contempt for the very people they are sworn to protect? How dare they give the middle finger to this body and go about their normal business like nothing is wrong? If you were undecided before, let this outrageous display help you make up your mind. It is time to disband the SRG and redeploy its funds to evidence-based safety strategies. And so I know that there are many of us that are certainly going to stay in this fight with all of y'all. So thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up.
So listen to what she said there. She said that because of the payouts from Corporation Counsel, SRG should be disbanded. That's the only thing she offers up there. But she's not specifically giving data about lawsuit data from SRG cases. When she's talking about 2020, Eric was in like 3 of those lawsuits. He wasn't in the SRG. So it was an overall NYPD she's talking about. And so like that's where I'm missing everybody here. And I'm like, what? So are you disbanding the SRG, or are you giving us a reason to disband the NYPD? What are you fighting against here? Because the people that are operating better than the rest of the NYPD, you want to disband. So then you could just disband the NYPD, I guess, if we just don't need any data.
Yeah, these idiots at City Council, I don't think they have I don't think they think of any of this themselves. I think that they just they're just repeating what somebody has put in front of their desk. I mean, you want to cut waste? How about we cut again the CMS system? Okay, $800 million. Okay, the budget
Tell everybody what the CMS system is, because they're not gonna know.
It's the crisis management system. It works out of the mayor's office of criminal justice, and
It's the violence intervention people. It's the violence intervention program.
Exactly. We talk about a waste in that. We talked about that no police zone BS in Brooklyn. Okay, and listen, $800 million is their budget. The budget of the SRG is what $133 million, right? Now, it seems to me that if you want to make some cuts, you go after the CMS rather than the SRG, because SRG is out there every weekend trying to prevent disorder in those protests. Okay, and CMS does a lot of work that's it's a duplicate of a lot of the things the police department already does. And again, as we talked about in the Brooklyn no police zone in Brownsville, it's stupid, and it like the violence interruption program. They have no metrics for measuring their successes or failures. They're unaccountable. Okay, we have a police department to do their job. Okay, we don't need a second a civilian police department to do it. Okay, so if you want to make cuts, why not go there? Instead, they want to make cuts at the stuff that actually works. So again, these idiots in city council, they're brainless people. Okay, they're just repeating what's put in front of their desk for a larger agenda, and they're not there to they don't care about efficiency.
Well, as soon as the screen came up and you saw her wearing that curtain on her face, right there you knew already she was a complete idiot. And I didn't even have to listen to a word she said. Now, back when they had that city council hearing, myself and John, we wrote an article together. They got published in the Manhattan magazine, and we proved, based on their own evidence, their own testimonies, that SRG, and John had told you earlier, was actually more effective at these protests. They were actually showed even more transparency because their names were identified in numerous areas, pretty much that they were almost impossible to not identify. And they actually garnered less complaints and actually showed that they were actually effective. But again, she has a complete curtain on her face. I want to put a curtain rod across her eyes. She looks like a complete joke. But that's what you listen to. These are the people in city council that would never have real jobs, that would never survive in the private industry. And these are the people that are trying to bring more money and more legislation to each district. They give out all this expansion on services, and then they wonder where the money goes. And then they want to make cuts to the NYPD and create another police force. Exactly, Marlon. What you have been saying is spot on, brother. They want to create another police force with people that are fairies, though, right? They're going to be like, ooh, okay, everybody wears a ball gag and nice pink shoes, and we go to people's houses, and we're really nice to emotionally disturbed people. That's the difference until, bam, you get smacked in the face, and you're wishing there's an NYPD cop there, right? Because what did Zohran Mamdani tell you? The evil man is with the gun. The man with the gun is actually the one who's going to keep people safe. It's actually going to create more violence. But this is the people you listen to. Somebody wears a curtain on her face. She's sitting by herself. There's no one around her, but she has a stupid curtain, and she's talking to a John. What do you call it? Duck mask? You always call it. She's talking into a bucket. It just looks ridiculous. I mean, so I think someone said it here earlier. Those masks are symbolic. They are symbolic of people that have a one-way, narrow mind on life, and that is Tiffany Caban. Now, the one part I do agree with her: the NYPD should be there. Absolutely. The NYPD should be there to do the same thing that John and myself did. By the way, John, we should send a bill to the NYPD because they owe us for proving that the SRG was more effective, and we used the evidence to prove it. The SRG should have been present. It shouldn't have been myself and John doing it. It should have been the NYPD. So that part I do agree with her.
Oh, yeah. And you know what was even more disgusting than the NYPD didn't show up to it? None of the union showed up to that hearing, too. And I actually spoke on that, too, when I was at that hearing. I said it's absolutely cowardice, and it just shows you the state of the NYPD. That was under who was the that was under what's her face at the time? She was still Keechon Sewell was still the police commissioner when that was happening. So, all right, let's just talk a little bit before I play Jumaane Williams, right? So I wrote this the other day in regard to New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani continuing to pledge to disband the NYPD's SRG. It should be noted the CCRB data actually shows the SRG is better equipped to handle protests than the rest of the NYPD. Here is the data from New York City Council hearing in 2023. The Civilian Complaint Review Board testified. Since its creation, SRG accounts for less than 1% of all CCRB complaints. 472 SRG officers received complaints. 82 SRG officers had substantiated complaints. SRG's substantiation rate is 10% higher than the CCRB average, meaning cases involving CCRB are more likely to be fully investigated and adjudicated, right? So that, like I said, their substantiation rate's slightly higher, but they're so much more easily identifiable. And here's the data that proves it. During the civil unrest in 2020, CCRB received 300 complaints in 48 hours. That is the highest amount in the agency's history. SRG made up only 15% of those protest-related cases due to the large-scale deployment. Outside of protests, SRG appears in less than 1% of complaints. Here's the critical data. 43% of those protest allegations, 43%, were closed because officers could not be identified. Not true for the SRG, right? In non-protest cases, that figure is just 11%. So it's showing you that the uniform that the SRG wears is actually the better uniform that you need when there's mass chaos going on if you want accountability and transparency from the NYPD, right? Regular uniform, you're not really going to be able to identify who it is. I know for me, I always had a helmet. I never had my shield number on my helmet. That thing gets torn off in your first couple of months, going back and forth to details, carrying it around. Maybe I had 3 of the letters out of my 4, you know? And so I just wrote, bottom line, the SRG is best equipped, best trained, and easy to identify and investigate. This is called transparency, not the reason to disband the SRG. And actually, what's funny, the Sun wrote an article. I think they put it out yesterday. And I got quoted with the most embarrassing, unprofessional chief of department ever in NYPD history, John Schell. So he got to actually get quoted alongside his hero. And so shout out to you, John. But here is Jumaane Williams. Now, you would expect the public advocate. He also wants to disband. You'd expect him to come out with some data points to prove any of his argument. But again, nothing from anybody. And now includes into 2026, Mayor Zohran Mamdani. They want to disband the SRG, but they can't tell you why.
Thank you very much. My name is Jumaane Williams, Public Advocate, City of New York. I want to thank Chair Hanks and the members of the Committee on Public Safety for holding this very important hearing. I also want to align myself to some of the comments of the chair, particularly with the administration and NYPD not being here. I held out hope that they would. I think it is shameful and an affront to this council and to New York City as a whole. I understand that there are some legal concerns. I do think just being present, even if it was to read the statement you submitted, would have shown some respect to the process and having this conversation in a public forum. In 2015, the NYPD formed the Strategic Response Group, or SRG, to combat terrorism. This is a voluntary unit that has attracted officers who reportedly wanted to see, quote-unquote, more action, and outfits them with riot gear and heavy weaponry, including military-grade long-range acoustic devices, also called LRADs, and machine guns. Originally, the unit was to consist of 350 officers with a budget of $13 million. Quickly, that ballooned to more than 700 officers with nearly $90 million in funds, including $10.2 million overtime last year alone. The SRG's involvement in policing protests, as we have seen, unfortunately, seemed to be more about suppression of speech and assembly and less about keeping everyone safe. Following criticism of the SRG potentially policing large-scale protests, the NYPD claimed in 2015 that the SRG would not be involved in covering protests. However, the NYPD began deploying the SRG to protests later that year. The results of the SRG's presence at protests have been aggressive and chaotic. and have invariably escalated nonviolent protests into dangerous and violent environments. The SRG beat protesters with batons, sprayed crowds with pepper spray, rammed into protesters on their bikes, and trapped protesters using barriers such as shields, bikes, and metal gates with no way for people to escape, a tactic known as kettling, and blasted crowds with noise cannons. I myself have had the brunt of over-response to protests, several protests, including SRG, including at Occupy Wall Street and at the George Floyd protests of 2020. I've also filmed and witnessed. Many SRG unit members have multiple misconduct complaints against them. Of the 62 SRG officers and supervisors identified by the appeal and videos from 2020 protests, 46 SRG members and 292 misconduct allegations filed against them with the Civilian Complaint Review Board, or CCRB. These complaints included abuse of authority, excessive force, offensive language, and discourtesy. Considering this history, the SRG's abusive behavior is unsurprising. Further, a report published last month examining complaints of police misconduct investigated by the CCRB revealed that the CCRB was only able to substantiate 88 of 321 complaints received. The reason this number is so low is not because misconduct did not occur, rather NYPD officers engaged in purposeful actions to conceal their identity to avoid identification. The NYPD also impeded CCRB investigations by delaying responses to requests for body-worn camera footage, claiming footage did not exist, turning over the wrong footage, and refusing to be interviewed remotely. I would say some of the things that have been substantiated by CCRB in the past, some of the worst ones are officers lying on record and nothing happening. The SRG does not police all protests equally. This was best example in 2018 when the SRG allowed the Proud Boys to march without a permit and backed away when they began to beat and shot homophobic slurs and counter protests. If my memory served me correctly, they were also ushered into the train without having to pay their fare. Most recently, the SRG was present at a rally held by an anti-trans group at which a number of transgender rights activists and supporters counter protest. The SRG, which those present at the protest reported outnumbered the counter protesters, engaged in a physical altercation with the counter protesters, arresting 9. Deploying the SRG to police protests has demonstrably resulted in unnecessary abuse and violence, and their presence should no longer be allowed at protests. It is unsurprising that the SRG frequently uses excessive force, as they are a specialized unit trained to respond to terrorism and violent crime. Over time, the NYPD has conflated terrorism and protests, leading to the deployment of officers and militarized gear to largely nonviolent demonstrations. Even the NYPD referred to their response to the 2020 protests as an inefficient deployment of resources. The SRG's behavior has resulted in numerous lawsuits and complaints against the NYPD in New York City, resulting in a significant financial burden on a city still recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic. The city must, at minimum, require greater transparency from the NYPD and the SRG on training, disciplinary records, and allegations of abuse. Look forward to working with the committee on.
So we can end that there. He doesn't even make one point. It's just, they beat people, they carry machine guns, they get CCRBs, they lie. Nothing to support it. Nothing to back up his claim whatsoever. There's nothing there. It's just, and this is what Zohran Mamdani is doubling down on.
Yeah. Never underestimate Democrats' ability to and politicians in general to cut off their nose to spite their face. You know, the thing is, what's really stupid about this is that we're not in a position that we're not in a position that you can say we don't need the SRG. Again, the SRG is most equipped and trained to deal with disorder in the city, and you don't want that disorder to get further out of control. Okay, and it seems to be that these protesters are like they're a consistent thing in the city now. We've seen that since Garner, you know, and it's moved from one cause to the other. We talked about it in a couple episodes ago, from you know, Trayvon and all and Eric Garner, and then we moved to you know, what is it, Palestine, and now we're moving to anti-ICE. So it's nonstop. And the thing is, we're not in a position where you can say we don't need SRG, because we're already losing hemorrhaging people. And the problem is, if you get rid of SRG now, and one of these protests get really out of hand, okay, now if they really get out of hand, you're going to push the city further into long-term problems. And again, I'm going to bring up Detroit, because Detroit had a massive rioting in 67. And following that, now Detroit was already losing hemorrhaging people, because for many reasons, one of which was industrialization of the suburbs. Factories were moving out to the suburbs and people were moving to them. Now, so Detroit was already losing people, but that accelerated after 1967 when those riots happened and it damaged businesses in the city. So do you really want to put the city in such a position where these riots can get out of hand? These protests will get out of hand and cause damages to buildings, okay, and businesses, that when the city's already hemorrhaging both residents and businesses. Because again, if you look at this graph, you look at by 1970, look at how there was a steady decline from 1950 all the way to 1970, and now we get from 1970 to the to the 90s and the 80s. But look, there was that decline was even sharper from 1970. Okay, so the thing is, we're in no position right now to say that we don't need disorder control. Okay, if you have protesting for every nonsense cause every week, okay, and these protesters are emboldened by politicians across the country, emboldened by even ex-presidents, because as I showed you on Friday, there were statements from on Monday rather, there were statements from Clinton and Obama that are basically encouraging people to push back against ICE on the street, encouraging protesters. So in that environment, do you really want to get rid of the unit that's whose responsibility it is, and whose effect, as John pointed out, is very effective? Do you really want to get rid of them right now?
Well, I think it comes down to the bottom line is Jumaane Williams, his testimony lacked any substance, any evidence. It was based completely on emotion, just the fact that he has a bias in disdain for police. Because John and I did the homework, and when we put it together, the analysis was evident. The evidence was there that SRG was effective at their job. They were transparent, they were accountable, and they were identified. The civilian complaints were made, and they were even substantiated at a higher rate. Case closed. Bottom line is Jumaane Williams, he's just talking from a place of emotion, just like every other city council member. Jumaane Williams, as public advocate, speaks from hot air. That was just completely useless. On to the next point. Thank you so much.
Well, so, and like, here's the one inflection that Mamdani said that they all say, right? Here's the one point that they bring up. They're like, we were told that they were going to be involved in counterterrorism, not policing First Amendment. So, one, SRG also goes to parades, right? And they're not policing the parade. They're not there to do enforcement. They're there to safeguard from terrorism. Right? Right? Is a parade a First Amendment activity? It absolutely is. They're there to keep order, and that is part of the counterterrorism plan. They're there, they're scanning, they have the radiation pagers, they have dogs with them. They're out there, they're looking for acts of terrorism, whether they're homegrown or foreign. And so the same is true when we talk about a protest. The SRG is not there to go and lock up protesters who are utilizing their First Amendment speech. The SRG is there to ensure that agitators that show up, paid organizers, people like that come in to cause chaos during these times, that they keep this under control and they keep a form of disorder control. And disorder control also falls into the counterterrorism plan. So I don't know what they're talking about. It's either you want a counterterrorism plan or you don't. That's exactly what they're doing at these First Amendment activities, is they're providing counterterrorism. It's exactly what they're doing when they're patrolling. It's exactly what they're doing when they're at parades, when they're at events, when they're at speeches. They're providing counterterrorism, but somehow they're trying to distance counterterrorism from protests, when that is that is exactly when you need a counterterrorism effort. You have thousands and thousands of people gathered. If I'm a bad actor and I want to do harm, that's the perfect opportunity for me to do that. So I don't know what you're talking about when you say that. Like, that is the only point that they brought up, and it's a complete misrepresentation of reality. It's a complete misrepresentation of reality. Policing a protest, policing a parade, that is counterterrorism. What you're saying is you don't want any of it.
Yeah, it's so stupid. It just doesn't pass the logic test. And I'm gonna have to co-opt Eric's spot on. Yeah, somebody in the chat accused me of stealing it, but yeah, I'm gonna have to co-opt it right now because John is spot on. A protest is a soft target. Baby. It's a soft target. The same guys in city council who encourage people to go protest. What you don't want them. You don't want them being protected by some nut job who wants to drive a car through them, right there.
Thank you. Thank you. Exactly.
It's just unbelievably stupid that for them to not call for SRG.
Thank you. You don't want those protesters protected. Exactly. Right? Yeah. What happened in Charlottesville when they drove through all those people? Right? Yeah. Those are your people that were protesting. Like, what happened? You don't want that to be stopped? Was that an act of terrorism? You're damn right it was.
Yeah. Look how many incidents there have been of people driving cars and mowing down people in a mass gathering. There've been so many throughout the years, and now you're telling me you don't want that. You don't want those protesters being protected then. And if you don't, so you're saying you want SRG to be separated from counterterrorism. Okay. So we move SRG to some other bureau in the NYPD. They're not in charge of counterterrorism. Now, where are we getting the money to fund another counterterrorism unit and train them also? Where are we going to get the money for that? Isn't this about the budget too? So now you want it. None of this makes any logical sense, And Jumaane, come on, I guess you don't need to pass. You don't need to understand logic to get into city council anymore.
Well, this is the same guy that not too long after this testimony was also pushing for the proposed How Many Stops Act, which actually was passed. So just complete bias in the state for the police. And yes, every protest, every time there's a gathering in New York City, there is a potential threat for mass terrorist attack, especially a protest, especially First Amendment activity where people are expressing themselves and they're kind of oblivious at that point. You need police protection, and especially you want SRG, which is specialized and has special weapons, and they try to demonize, they carry machine guns. Yes, those firearms are important, necessary for the task. We should not demonize those firearms. We should embrace them. They're a tool like anything else. But Jumaane, he's a tool also. Let's move on.
Yeah. And I hope Jessica Tish, we know your people watch this show. We're giving you the template now to go in front of city council and push back against them. So don't send any moron who's going to kowtow to them when they get
leave that Gerber baby at home.
Yeah.
Leave that Gerber baby at home.
And seriously, like, if you need us to come testify, let us know. We do consulting, because it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, Gerber's actually pretty good in city council. He's terrible at everything else. He's pretty good at pushing back with them. He's pretty good at. I got to give it to him. He's pretty good at that.
He was good on a couple occasions, but the problem is the rest of them were kind of silent, and that jellyfish LePetri was getting abused by Jumaane Williams because he had nothing to say back.
He held his own a little bit. What was he going to do? Besides getting up and smacking Jumaane, there was really nothing he could do at that point. I mean, it is what it is, like.
But this conversation to getting rid of SRJ has gone on too long. They need to get up there and just tell them why exactly. Do you put your name on disbanding SRG and then wait until if some a mass casualty event happens there. Okay, if some of these protesters get hurt, that's on you. That's your career right there. Okay.
Yeah, and listen, I agree. I think it's a big deflection also. The more we talk about SRG, remove SRG, and we embed people with this, It allows them to come out with a social worker program if people aren't really paying attention. I agree with Mikey G. It's kind of funny, but that's the reality. He says if they had their way, they'd be carrying slingshots. Yeah, they're so anti-gun, demonize the gun, yet someone like Jumaane Williams knows nothing about a gun, doesn't know anything about it. Yet that guy probably drives, I don't know, he drives a car or he gets on a bicycle, he gets on something that's probably even more dangerous than a firearm, where you have other environmental factors. When you're carrying a firearm, it's on you, and they don't have all those environmental factors. These are just complete idiots. When we talk about the city council, we're talking about idiots. So you're right, John. Yes, you can hire us, but you damn well you're going to pay for us to testify on behalf of the NYPD that's missing. You need testimony. But in my opinion, John, I don't agree. I saw Mike LaPetri and his testimony in response to Jumaane Williams, I thought was weak. They have so much evidence to show that SRG is the apparatus, and they did not fight it back. I thought he was kind of weak in that. The Gervin baby, I think he's the best one out of the complete idiots, but I think they're terrible.
Yeah.
So, all right. So last point for tonight. I think we got to get on ICE. We got to talk about it. I don't know why I said tonight, but I must not have slept last night, and I got to stay up all night tonight too. But whatever. So that last point for today, we got to get on ICE a little bit. But before we do, two things. One, I know a lot of people put it in the chat. Don Lemon got arrested. I don't care. I want to see what happens with the case. I'm sick of these arrests. He's out 3 hours later. Now he got all his talking points. He's going viral, sending his thing. I want to see what happens with that case. So screw Don Lemon. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Kathy Hochul and Jessica Tisch are live right now with Zohran Mamdani, and they're having a press conference right as we speak right now. Here's the point that they want to do. They want to double down on what happened in Minnesota. So it's my contention that what happened in Minnesota, those two protesters got killed. It was their own actions that got them killed. But the Minneapolis Police Department is directly responsible for that because they did not do their mission, right? They did not keep the public safe from themselves. They should have been there to keep protesters out of the street and keep protesters orderly. ICE is not there for crowd control. ICE is not there to police the streets of Minneapolis. That's what taxpayers pay the Minneapolis Police Department do for. So what New York State and New York City is trying to do is double down on those failures. They want some people to get killed by ICE in New York City now. So this is what they're proposing right here. What the local crime act does, it bans the 287G agreements in New York, which keeps local police focused on fighting local crime. It prevents ICE from diverting local law enforcement resources. It protects trust between policy and communities. So what they're saying is like, no, we want exactly what you're witnessing in Minneapolis, what we showed you, right? What did we show you? We showed you that the ICE was getting attacked, and the cops were standing there with their hands in their pockets doing nothing. And what did that lead to? That led to the death of two useful idiots. Two Americans that got riled up by these same incompetent elected. And this is what's going to happen. You're just going to see more of this. More of what's happening in Minneapolis. New York wants it now because they want those viral videos. They want those talking points. This is like, they're just literally doubling down on every failure of the left. And so I hope Ivanka Trump gets on the phone with Jessica and Kathy, because what are you going to do about this, Donald Trump? Because all these lines in the sand, you guys keep stepping over. And honestly, the policy's incompetent, and we told you what needs to happen, and you guys aren't doing it. Tom Homan gave a great speech the other day, but anybody could go out and give a great speech. What are we doing to follow up? What are we doing to have a competent, all-hands approach, all-government approach to getting illegals out of this country, getting our budgets and our budget deficits in order across this nation? These same idiots are talking about a $12 billion budget deficit, while at the same time they want our borders open and they want to feed, clothe, shelter, and give health care to the entire world. These people are the worst amongst us.
Yeah. And they want to push people to confront ICE. They want to encourage more protesters. Never mind that's there's costs behind that. There's consequences of businesses and people fleeing. we're at a completely like unprecedented point in American history, I believe, and you really have to wonder where the end game is on all of this.
Yeah, well, clearly this is inflammatory. It's irresponsible. These politicians are to blame. They're pitting law enforcement against each other. The missions are completely different. Law enforcement missions should be the same, just public safety, whether it's on a local level, city level, state level, or national level. And they're actually leading people to their own death because they're incentivizing people to get emotional and to be emotionally driven to give opposition to ICE. And all they do is put these people in harm's way. They send them to battle. That's what they're doing, to fight with men that are armed and they're unarmed. And they're just, and as John said, unfortunately, it's tragic they died, but they are useful idiots. They're useful to people that want to play this agenda.
Their death was useful. Their death was absolutely useful.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a video came out about Alex Preddy that happened earlier, like than that other protest where he like kicks the ICE vehicle out. And if you see in that protest, he was armed there as well. Like you could see the gun in the small of his back there. Now, again, that doesn't justify what happened to him days later. But it shows that he was violent, his act towards law enforcement, how he was acting violent and tumultuously, how he was leading, he was pushing confrontations with law enforcement. So, and again, that shouldn't have happened. And at that protest, it said that he broke a rib and he was arrested. So I'm sitting there and I'm going, well, how did he get his gun back? Shouldn't his gun have been taken, vouchered? Shouldn't he have to go through like a licensing hearing and all this? Like, how was he just given his firearm right back and he was still out on the street? Or was he not even arrested at all? And this is what we're talking about by the whole of government approach and how the police department led to is that the police should have been there that day. He should have been arrested. His firearm should have been removed from him. He should have had to face and suffer consequences for what he did that day when he spit on an ICE agent, broke the car, broke the taillight of the vehicle, and attacked ICE agents. He should have had to answer for that. And if he did, and if there was a competent approach by the Minneapolis Police Department or even ICE for that matter, but again, it's not ICE's job. It's not what they're trained to do. It's not what they're supposed to do. This wouldn't happen. The guy would still be alive. He would have a court case that he'd have to deal with, you know? And so you got to blame everybody here. You got to blame the politicians. You got to blame the police department. You got to blame the people who are agitating this and egging this on. It's really bad what's happening right now. And again, I did a space the other day. There was a lot of people on it. I think there was like 60,000 people on it. And I talked about like that ICE isn't well trained. And I just want to just back up my comments of what I meant by that. Again, I think federal agents train in use of force much more often than local police. They have the ability to do that. I think they're a lot more proficient in their use of firearms. So I do think there's a lot of training for federal agents. However, they are not trained to do crowd control. They're not trained to police the streets in municipal cities. They are not trained to do that. And then take it, even if they are, were they all trained by the same people? No. Like I know a guy in Staten Island. He's an ICE agent. You know what he does? They tell him, yeah, go up to Minnesota. So now he drives up to Minnesota. He reports up to Minnesota, and he's there with like all these other guys that he never worked with, and all these new people that ICE took on. And so like he's in a city that he knows nothing about. He doesn't know where the hospitals are. The police aren't helping them, and they're getting absolutely abused for hours upon hours. They're being followed around by these maniacs. They're blowing whistles. How long do you think you're going to hold your composure and do that? Because I'll tell you, I could probably do it for 6 hours, maybe 7 hours. It's freezing there. You're tired. You're working 12, 16 hours a day. You're on your feet. You're dealing with these maniacs all day. After a while, you start to lose your temperament. And that is just human nature. Human nature, where we're going to see more forceful reactions from ICE because they're getting fed up. And rightfully so. And I know myself, I would too. And so would you guys. You're not going to be able to hold that composure. You guys know how it is. Like New Year's is a great event, right? New Year's Eve. It's a great event. I've done it so many times in my career. It's a great, great event. By the end of that, I get so many stupid questions. Like after like 10,000, 15,000 stupid questions, you start to like really be like, you start to like not be so nice anymore. You know, could I go there? It's like, do you think you can? Like, you know, and like now imagine someone's blowing a whistle in your face, attacking you and spitting on you. What do you think your reaction is going to be at that point? So again, we're being set up for failure. And I see just no leadership anywhere. So anything else before we get to the super chats?
No, I think we covered it well. But to your point, that frustration is going to come because how their surge for illegals would take, again, between 35 and 42 years at the rate of 329,000 illegals a year, which is what they did last year. So at a certain point, there will be mounting frustration that may boil over because that rate is unsustainable.
I agree. Listen, I said it also, and I still say it, and I still stand by it. I think municipality, police departments, local law enforcement are far more trained when it comes to the unexpected in comparison to planned events. And in my opinion, based on my analysis, I believe federal law enforcement agencies are trained. Their forte, their wheelhouse is more surveillance, planned events, intelligence. Not saying that they don't have any training for unexpected, but it's not the same voluminous that it is in a municipality like the NYPD, a local law enforcement metropolis. Completely different animal. But that's why I blame the politicians. They're putting ICE into situations they're just not prepared for and they're not ready for. Now, if they work in tandem, if we had every ICE agent paired up with someone from local law enforcement, that would be far more effective because they could guide them through it. But instead, we have them in opposition. So shame on them. Let's get to the coffee and donuts.
Yeah. Mike Smith says, ICE, their $50K to former cops is BS. We all applied, no call except for Kaz. They called me, Mike. They said that they didn't want me. I didn't have any.
There you go.
I didn't have any perjury on my record, and I didn't have anything for them to look at that was black mark, except, I might have had a call from some fucking fat fuck who cheated on his taxes, who was the worst chief of department ever. I might have a bad name because of that, but hey, it is what it is,
John, I think I think you set off the testosterone meter. You have to have a certain level of testosterone to get into law enforcement. If you have too much testosterone, you can't get in. By the way, Blue Butterfly 715, thank you. She says, great show today, guys. God bless you all. Eric, feel better. Drink lots of tea. God bless. Yeah.
Yeah, you sound like shit, bro. You're starting to deteriorate.
Yeah.
We should keep him on like another hour. We should keep him on.
my ass. What's that?
We should keep him on like another hour, I think. We'll keep talking.
No, if we went another hour, I quit. I'm done. I'm done. I'm drowning over here. Spot on, brother.
Like, all right. So let's do it. 516 Diecast. Chris Affronti, what's up, brother? He says, present for duty. It's been a while, gentlemen. Been listening nonstop. I want to say thank you and the entire team for awesome content. This retiree's 25-year white shield. Thanks you. All God bless you always. Chris, thanks, brother. Hope all is well. Happy New Year, bro. Glad that you're listening, but we like to have you here, but we got it. The times are the times. But we're going to keep going. We're going to try to continue to put out more content, so we're going to keep going. We got Stephen Dess. The 1975 New York City fiscal crisis was a near bankruptcy event, but with unsustainable debt, economic stagnation, and shrinking tax base as residents fled. It's funny, dude. History just repeats itself over and over again. I sent Eric and Marlon like this little caption from 1893 about protests in the street, debt, all this stuff, and it was all in New York City, and how it was just we could have just changed it to 2026, and that's what I sent them.
Anti-Semitism.
Anti-Semitism. It was all the same shit. Immigrants, they were mad about immigrants coming in, but the immigrants happened to be Jews at that point, coming over from Eastern Europe. So this conversation has always been going on about illegal immigration, budget, protesting, riots, anarchists, co-opting First Amendment activities. These are all the same conversations consistently throughout history. And that, it's times like that. It's those moments where you're like, look, how did we come out of 1975? When you read The Circle of Six, When you read that and you're like, how the hell is New York City still standing? How is the police department still standing? How did we go from that to where we are now? And that's what gives me hope. It's like, because it's been done before and we could do this. We just need competent people to do it. But we just keep electing idiots.
John, this isn't coffee and donuts, but we got to read this one. This is hilarious. Joe Roscoe says, the ball gag dried out my mouth. Excuse me. Okay, go. I'm dying.
It must have got you. He must have got you too.
It got me too. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what?
What's that?
I said, poor Eric. You need some tea and honey, bro. Mushroom coffee.
What am I say? Yeah.
And ginger tea, bro.
Yeah.
No, I need Tiffany Caban's curtain. I should put a curtain over my face. That will help. Look at I can breathe in my own cold. Stupid.
Ridiculous. Who do we got? Jonathan Fredericks. What's up, brother?
Yo.
Long time no see, bro. I hope you got a haircut.
I need one too. My man.
He's got hair. He goes to see him, barber, John. Always remember, cutting someone's contract or cutting someone's program or someone's unit comes with political backlash of not my stuff. Then cue the sad, now unemployed person and bad publicity. It is what it is. Like, you got to make hard decisions, and you can't worry about what you got to do. You got to cut the fat, dude. Oh no. I like to just go write 5 summonses and then I sleep on overtime. Well, guess what? You don't do that anymore. There's a new sheriff in town, and that's what it is. You don't like it? Next election's in 4 years. Get me out of here. It's that simple. It's either we want to make everybody happy, which is completely impossible, and we lead to where we are now, or we understand that there is a reality that we have to face fiscally. And, Chris Baugh said that he doesn't believe that Eric Adams has the ability to navigate us out of that crisis. He was 100% right. As far as Zohran Mamdani, if we're going to go off of his past time in the New York State Assembly, then I'm going to say, based upon that, I don't believe he has the skills to navigate us out of this crisis either. I hope I'm wrong, and he has the ability to try to prove us wrong at this point.
Yeah, baby. You're right.
Even if you're the most corrupt sleazeball who wants your crumbs, right? There's something you need to consider. If things keep going the way it is, there won't be any crumbs at all, okay, for anybody, okay? So, it's the larger point is hard decisions need to be made, and the sooner the better.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's told you back when, says John, run for city council, do it. I'm definitely not doing it until my kids are out of high school. Like, I wouldn't even consider it until that point.
John, what would you represent? Bensonhurst? Hey!
No, I'm going
to my district.
I'm going right to I'm going right to Dungan Hill section of Staten Island. I'm going right for the minority leader seat, David Carr. I want his seat.
There you go.
Like
you and Justin Brown can be friends.
I want to give him a little payback for never calling me back during COVID and never lifting a finger or anything. I want to give him a little payback because he deserves it, because he's useless. He's a Borelli acolyte. He's a Democrat with an R in front of his name, just like Ina Vernikov.
John, first snowstorm, you'll be right back in Florida, brother.
I enjoyed shoveling snow, but it pisses me off. It pisses me off that you have healthy males sitting on their ass collecting a government check. They should be out shoveling for these old people in these businesses. It's bullshit. That shit pisses me off. Like, you're sitting around, you're a healthy male, and you got soft, tender hands. Like, what are you doing? You could go out and rob and steal and sell drugs, but you can't do hard work. And that's another thing. That's Zohran. You don't want to double down on the budget. Get healthy men to work. Get healthy single women to work. If they have kids, whatever, they're sick, people are disabled, take care of them. We have healthy men that are here. Put their asses to work.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because when I shake a man's hand, if it feels like soft, I'm like, I know this guy's been worth the day of his life. Half the time you shake my hand, it feels like I could sandpaper some drywall because I'm always working. That's what men are supposed to do. It's supposed to work.
Yeah, it's sick.
Okay.
Yeah. So told you back when he says mall and chief of staff. Yeah, I love it. I don't know.
Oh, I didn't get a job. What happened?
Black belt. He doesn't want anything to do with the government anymore. So,
Hey, I told you. What is it? I
Wanna
told
live
you
off
so
the grid.
back when. What happened? I didn't get a job because I'm not sick. Is that what it is?
he knows that you like to travel, bro. We can't hold you down.
I can work remote. I can work remote by the
Who we got now? We got Stephen Dess. He says city council was paid $112K in 2016 as a base salary. 2019, $148K. Now the city council's looking for a raise to $172,000. Does anyone want to do the percentage increase? So listen, you want to know what's funny about that? Danny Carenza, who will go back and forth a little bit. He had texted me. So you know Natasha Williams, who wants to do the anti meme bill, the anti-Finest Unfiltered meme bill. She also is the city council person that put in the bill to give themselves a raise. So it's like this is like what's going on here. It's like you got to go through. If you're bored one day and you want to see what city council does, look at it. I'm telling you, what they did is they had homework to do. They're like, oh, I got to show I did something, and they just came up with the biggest bunch of bullshit and threw it up there. These bills, 95% of them should get thrown off the thing, and that falls on the speaker, and that falls on the minority leader. I'm telling you, and I'll be honest. If I was in city council, I wouldn't have a lot of bills. You wouldn't see 10 bills up in my name. You'd see maybe 1 or 2, and the chances I get them passed are going to be like slim to none because I'm going to have no friends anyway. So it's like it is what it is. But at least there'll be things that people want and the constituents want, and things that matter, like things that actually matter and competent things, not bullshit. Like, oh, I don't want you making fun of me on it using AI. Like that's called First Amendment, honey. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys go to the city council, we're gonna have to continue the show. The Finest Unfiltered from the RV. Like, oh, we're still going, baby.
Well, I'll do it. Frank Morano still seems to be a radio personality. The guy's
That's
doing
true.
radio hits every day. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, I guess, city council really is a part-time job. Thanks, Frank.
Yeah. Frank Morano set the stage. Thanks, Frank.
Yeah. It should be a part-time job because the longer these idiots are in there is the more BS laws they could think up just to justify their existence, I want less. They should be there for 2 weeks out of the year, and that's it. Go home, go back to your regular job. Good. That way you keep your ear to the street and you live like the rest of us instead of making $100K for creating BS laws that just make life harder for everybody here.
And meanwhile, they're in Miami right now.
Yeah,
traveling the country. They're not even in New York City. Stay trained up. He says, Eric, put some honey and lemon tea on your ball gag. No, he didn't say that. Get better, man.
My ball gag really dried out my mouth over here. Terrible. No, I can't. It's rough. I don't know. A lot of people getting sick right now. This week, I don't know. I'm surviving, though. I'll make it. I hope.
You made it. Almost there. 257. Who we got? The Smith. Uh-oh. Is this a Levon Holly? Nope. Wow, you're getting soft, Mike, in your old age. What's going on here, bro?
Yeah, what's going on, Mike? What are you doing?
Do you think Kaz will have his PS5 set up at the ice office? Oh, wait, that was his drone control.
That's hilarious.
Well, look, I'll tell you, I think that job's a bunch of bullshit, so he's going to need to do something. So, Kaz, hit us up with your handle. I want to get back into Call of Duty. So
I can see Kaz doing a YouTube video. Ice, ice, baby. We'll see it. Yeah.
So
Kaz driving a little souped up car.
Modern Samurai, baby. He says 100K for the channel on the horizon. Morning, gents. Coffee and cold medicine for Eric this morning. Great show, everyone. Have a great weekend. You too, brother. Everybody definitely stay warm this weekend. Be careful out there. It's not nice out there. So definitely.
We gotta hit 100K while we're doing the show. That's what
I don't think so. I think we're gonna hit it before tomorrow. Honestly, we might hit it You know, if we keep at the
Definitely
pace
by
we're
Monday.
at, we're not gonna. We'll be way over 100 before Monday. So, listen. It doesn't matter, right? Who gives a shit? You know, like sorry, we always said it, right? It doesn't matter if one person's here or 10,000 people here. It doesn't matter.
True.
You know, 500 with us this morning, right now, watching live. We appreciate you. So really doesn't matter. Screw the numbers. You know, screw the numbers. Everybody knows what the number one police podcast in the country is, and it's right here, the Finest Unfiltered. You know, and then here we go, baby, and here we go. Jason, he says, before they make it a law, please make a CAS AI article. Look, I'll tell you right now, you know, I don't want to get arrested again, but if they make that a law, I'm gonna be pushing that law. I'm gonna force them to arrest me because we're gonna fight that one, because absolutely not. You know. Absolutely not. This is America. Your First Amendment right. You use it or you lose it. You know, that's one that's a hill I'm willing to die on right there, because that's just ultimately not only it's telling you what you could say, it's telling you what you could think and what you could do. Ultimate control. If they pass that law, everyone and their mother should make a meme and just keep dropping it every day. Every day. That is absolute bullshit. If that law passes, I'm going to put their feet to the fire. Come arrest me. I'll gladly turn myself in if you need.
Yep. I'm trying to get over the hill to finish it. I still got stamina. I'm trying to get over the hill to finish this. I'm making it. Let's go.
It's game on, Councilwoman Williams.
Yeah.
I'm gonna push you to pass that law. Okay. You gave me a target, and I'm gonna get underneath your skin now.
Marlon, they just create a firestorm. Wait till the memes come now. That's it. They're gonna be crying.
Yep. Stephen S., my brother.
Yeah, thank you.
Stephen S., what's up? Great info, professors. We are the experts. God bless yous. Forward boldly. Let's go forward boldly. Absolutely.
Word up. Thank you, brother.
It's told to you back when, says 25th hour, Bensonhurst. Bensonhurst. Hey, wait, I got it for you, baby. You ready? Bensonhurst. This is called the Brooklyn Beater, fellas. There's not too many people in Florida that keep a baseball bat next to them, you know?
Yeah. John, if you get elected city council, you could keep that stick. You're like, I'm the man with the stick.
Brooklyn Beater, baby.
Walk in the city council with it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Call me Batman. That's it.
My first proposal would be all city council members have to wear a ball gag. That's what I would do.
I was gonna, what's it called? I was gonna, like the article in the Sun. I was just gonna caption it with, I'm Batman, Shell is Robin. But I didn't.
Nah, man.
Oh, shit. So,
let's do
all right,
it.
people. All right.
That's
it, right?
No, that's it. Listen, I appreciate everybody. Thank you so much for the shout out. Hopefully I'm better by Monday. Finest Unfiltered.
All right.
Yeah, guys. I was just going to say have a great weekend, chat. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks for having a awesome chat room today, like usual. You did great this week, and get ready for another exciting week next week. So,
yeah, let's do it.
That's it, baby. And remember, Eric Adams, you suck.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?